Empire of Steel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551. Bang Bang Bang. A series of flames and white smoke erupted from the battleship, and after a burst of gunfire, a few screams suddenly came from the city wall of Pengzhou. Lu Fei had been observing the city wall, and regretfully said at this time, "I almost hit it. Hey, just a few soldiers died. Hurry up and reload." Upon receiving the order, the soldiers immediately took out minute shells and gunpowder to reload. They have been training since Xiaoming sent these muskets to the Pengzhou camp. Compared with the previous muskets, the range and accuracy of these muskets have been greatly improved, but despite this, the hit rate of shooting a target at a distance of 100 meters is still very low, which is why Lu Fei asked 60 to shoot at the target at the same time. While the soldiers were reloading, there was a sound of ghosts crying and wolf howling on the city wall. This round of shooting immediately caused 8 soldiers to fall down on the city wall. 3 of the soldiers were shot in the head and died on the spot, and blood flowed out along the bullet holes. 2 of them were hit in the ribs, and they were lying on the ground crying. The other 3 were hit in the arms, and the bullets penetrated into the flesh. The pain also made them cry incessantly. The other soldiers felt like they had seen a ghost. They were confused at first, and then became afraid. This seemed too strange to them. Even if the people of Pengzhou were sturdy, these soldiers could not help trembling in their hearts. This method of death is really too scary compared to these soldiers. It was Mi Wenyi and Mi Kuang who were more afraid. The soldiers' tragic appearance made them pale, and Mi Wenyi knew very well that this round of musket salvo was aimed at him and Mi Kuang. Mi Changshi, what's going on? Mi Kuang's whole body trembled uncontrollably. Unlike Mi Wenyi, who had seen muskets, Mi Kuang had been in Pengzhou City for many years, but he had never seen muskets and artillery. Mi Wenyi didn't have time to explain to Mi Kuang now. He hid directly behind the battlements and didn't dare to show himself. He shouted, "Squat down, do you want to die? This is the musket of the Pengzhou army. Damn, what is the range of these muskets? It will be so far away, and King Qi must have deceived us." Mi Kuang's face was getting paler. Pengzhou City had been at ease for too long, and these soldiers had suppressed the rebellion of some people on weekdays, so how could they ever face a real war? The tragic death of the soldiers shocked the other soldiers as well as him. What should we do? Are we hiding here all the time? Mi Kuang said. Just as the two were talking, another burst of gunshots sounded, and 9 more soldiers were shot. For a while, the soldiers above the city were completely terrified, and they all squatted down following Mi Wenyi and Mi Kuang. It's just the beginning of what really scares them. Boom boom. After the second round of shooting, the Pengzhou battleship lost its harmless camouflage. At this time, one square cover was lifted from one side of the battleship, and these covers came to cover the muzzle. When these wooden lids were lifted, a black muzzle stretched out and aimed at the approaching Pengzhou Navy. When the Pengzhou Navy entered only 50 meters away from the battleship, the thick fire and white smoke obscured the battleship, and the projectile shot straight at the Pengzhou Navy battleship in the river. Boom, boom, boom. The cannonball penetrated the hull of the warship, mixed with wood fragments, and flew to the boatman in the cabin. And suddenly continuous screams sounded in the cabin. The boatman who was rocking the oar had never seen such a scene before, and was so frightened that he dropped the oar and ran to the deck screaming. It's just that the tragic situation on the warship is even worse than below. At this time, there are mutilated corpses on the deck of the warship. The soldiers are holding the broken legs and screaming incessantly, and blood is flowing freely on the deck. The soldiers who had not yet reacted from the roar were shrouded in death, and most of the soldiers were frightened and dumbfounded. And there was only one thought in their minds, what the hell is this? But they were not allowed to think, and soon there was another explosion. This time, a black cloud rushed towards them like lightning in their eyes. It was only when they got close that they could see that they were small round beads, and these black round beads also became the last sight in the eyes of many soldiers, and then their bodies were penetrated. There were many screams on the river, and the river was quickly dyed red with blood. The frightened soldiers jumped into the river and fled. At this moment, they no longer had the will to fight. The generals of the Lu family who led the Pengzhou Navy were even more unbearable. When the warships in front were bombarded with wood ships, they retreated in a panic. The soldiers on the city wall were even more frightened by the scene in front of them. This time they finally understood what a musket was and what an artillery was. How do you fight this battle? A general's eyes are full of despair. No matter how brave his soldiers are, The killing of soldiers who can't reach the other side is enough to make them lose their will to fight the soldiers of Pengzhou City. Listen, His Royal Highness King Qi has ordered that no one who surrenders will be killed, and once the army enters the city, the people in the city can share the good land like the people of Qingzhou. Soldiers, do you still want to be killed by these Pengzhou or the wealthy clans in the city bullying and oppressing? Suddenly, a high voice was uploaded from the river to the city wall. When Mi Wenyi and Mi Kuang heard the words, a trace of hatred flashed in their eyes, and now they were more aware of what would happen if Pengzhou City fell. As for the children of the big clan in the city, as long as you are willing to surrender, your highness will spare you the same. As long as you disband the trilogy and return to people's land, your highness is merciful and allows you to continue living in the city. Otherwise, after the city is broken, all the children of the noble clan will be killed. Amnesty. Lu Fei's voice sounded again after these two sentences. Some soldiers from poor people's homes looked at each other. The story of Qingzhou had already spread here. Although the local nobles slandered King Qi, they understood that King Qi was very kind to the people. Unlike these poor soldiers, the children of the wealthy family are in a complicated mood, and now they are in a dilemma. Don't believe their nonsense. King Qi is a despicable villain. They are deceiving you. If Pengzhou City is lost, you will lose your land, wives, soldiers. We must block the enemy's attack today. Mi Wenyi shouted loudly. Mi Kuang shouted at the same time, today. All the soldiers will fight with me to the death. If anyone dares to take a half step back, I will kill him. The soldiers fell into silence when they heard the voices of the two, and they exchanged glances without knowing what they were thinking. Above the river, Lu Fei loudly announced Xiaoming's policy on Pengzhou City and ordered the battleship to stop on the north bank of the Bian River. His purpose was to defeat the Pengzhou Navy, and now he can easily do it. The rest is to wait for Luo Xin and Luo Hong to lead most of them to formally attack the city. Chapter 552. The setting sun was like blood, and the Bianshu River was dyed bright red. I don't know if it was the reflection of the setting sun or real blood. After stationing on the north bank of the Bian River, Luo Hong and Luo Xin appeared at the end of the official road in Pengzhou in the evening. After meeting with Lu Fei, the army did not attack the city immediately but set up camp along the official road in Pengzhou City. Just like the information provided by Li San, the land in front of Pengzhou City is very narrow and not suitable for large-scale deployment of the army. That night, Lu Fei and a group of generals reconfirmed the strategy for the next day's siege to avoid confusion and command. There are 50,000 soldiers in Pengzhou City, and there are estimated to be 80,000 to 90,000 people in the big clans in the city. The gates of Pengzhou City are easy to blow open, but when soldiers enter the city, they will encounter street fighting, and street fighting is very difficult for us. Words are the worst. Lu Fei said with a frown. Luo Hong nodded. He understood what Lu Fei meant. The most ideal battlefield for the musket team is the open field, which is more convenient for the formation of the queue, but once it enters a town with many buildings, it is difficult to take advantage of the musket salvo to face each other. So His Highness asked us not to rush for quick success, but to fight steadily and steadily. After the city is broken, we must first control the city gate, and rely on the city gate to occupy the city wall. In this way, we have established a position and can slowly erode the city of Pengzhou. Luo Xin hugged said with arms. Lu Fei nodded and said to Luo Xin, tomorrow your lime bombs will be hard to hit, and grape bombs are also available. No matter how hard Pengzhou City is, it will be harder than Shanhaiguan. No, Shanhaiguan has been won. Can we still be afraid of a Pengzhou City? Luo Xin echoed, and the two burst into laughter. Luo Hong looked at the two with some envy. Qingzhou's military reputation was well known in the Great Yu Kingdom, and he was also envious. Don't forget me, the soldiers of our firearms battalion are not cowards. While the three were discussing the siege of the city tomorrow, the atmosphere in the city of Pengzhou became more and more solemn. They originally thought that there were only these three warships in this siege, but they did not expect that so many soldiers would come one after another in the evening and the afternoon. The shooting and the shelling of the Pengzhou Navy also filled the city with a sense of fear and pessimism. The Pengzhou Navy, known for its ferocity, was defeated. Mi Changshi, how can we fight this battle without artillery and muskets? You have seen it. The Qi King's army outside the city has muskets and artillery pieces. Our soldiers were beaten before they encountered the enemy. I'm so scared that I don't dare to fight again. How can this be good? The Lu family's patriarchs sighed heavily. Different from the optimism in the morning, the patriarchs in the city now sighed one by one. They knew exactly what happened on the city wall. They could not imagine fighting against such an army at all. Let's escape. It's still too late. If King Qi's army enters the city, "We'll be finished," said one person. "That's right, clean up the gold and silver now, otherwise it won't be too late to escape. Everyone should run for their lives." One person's mention of fleeing was immediately echoed by everyone. They were usually very vicious to the people, but facing an army that was even more vicious than them, there was only fear at this time. Miwenai had a gloomy face. Everyone could flee without a fight, but he couldn't. He was the long history of King Wei's mansion, and this Pengzhou city was the foundation of the Mi family. It loses its value in the eyes. Boom. Miwenai slapped the table fiercely, and said, "Escape? Where can you escape to? This King Qi's ambition is not only our Wei Di, he wants the whole world, and then you can still escape. Go somewhere." Everyone was silent for a while. Miwenai was not without reason. Now that the world is in chaos, where else can they escape? One of the patriarchs said, "It's not that we are greedy for life and fear of death, it's just that the Kingzhou army's firearms are too powerful. If Mo Changshi could let King Wei dispatch a group of artillery and muskets, we would be able to fight, but if we continue to fight like this, it will only increase casualties." Miwenai sighed. He blamed himself very much because he underestimated the power of firearms. It wasn't that he valued firearms, but that he saw King Wei's firearms when he was in Jinling City. After the firearms demonstration in Jinling City, he felt that firearms were not invincible, but now he understands that he is wrong, because in his opinion, there is no comparison between the Kingzhou musket team and the musket team of the King of Wei. The Kingzhou army is not only skilled in operation, but also strict in discipline, which can only be seen from the camp. The army tents outside the city were straight lines horizontally and vertically. The soldiers were patrolling in 2 rows, 3 in a row, and there was not a single soldier who was idle. "As long as you guys can hold on for half a month, I'll be able to get the artillery and arquebus." Miwenai hesitated and made up his mind. "Half a month?" Everyone looked at me, I looked at you, and everyone had no confidence. With a heavy snort, Miwenai said, "This is the only way now. Whether you want to die in the hands of King Qi or fight hard is up to you." After all, Miwenai threw his sleeves and left. Seeing Miwenai leaving in anger, everyone sighed and dispersed. The next day, the morning in Pengzhou City was broken by the roar of cannons. The battleship docked on the north bank of the Bian River was the first to attack, and the artillery bombarded the city gate of Pengzhou City directly. Luo Xin on the other side of the Bianshu River looked at this scene with a bit of envy. The decision of the governor Niu was really right. This battleship was simply a sea fortress, and this round of artillery salvo was powerful. Lu Fei looked at the opposite side with the binoculars. Compared with yesterday, the guards in Pengzhou City were obviously much smarter. None of the generals and soldiers dared to show their faces, and they all hid behind the battlements. Boom boom boom, the Galen boat on the water continued to bombard the city gate of Pengzhou City. After another 2 rounds of salvos, the city gate of Pengzhou City suddenly slanted and fell down. Only then did everyone realize that behind the city gate was a pile of stones. The city gate was broken. Lu Fei looked at Luo Xin and said, "It's up to you. Bring the mortar up." Luo Xin shouted, and soon 60 soldiers carried the mortar mounted on a metal base to the front, and the field guns were also arranged in line by the artillery line bomb. Luo Xin ordered again. Under his orders, the soldiers loaded the lime shells and the hollow shells into the mortars, while the gunners began to measure the distance and adjust the length of the corks on the shells' fire. With Luo Xin's order, 30 mortars fired at the opposite side at a distance of 300 meters at the same time. Boom boom boom, the lime bombs exploded near the city wall, and the white lime spread like smoke, blocking the side of the defenders of Pengzhou City. At the same time, the 3 Galen ships on the water began to adjust their positions, and the 3 warships were lined up across the river. The 2 Galen ships were connected by 2 iron cables, and the soldiers on the ships laid wooden boards on the iron cables to form a temporary bridge. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 553. On the city wall, the Pengzhou army fell into chaos every time a cannonball hit the city gate. The hearts of the Pengzhou defenders cooled, especially when the black projectile passed through the city gate and shook the stone wall. They became more and more afraid. The stone wall was built overnight to prevent the city gates from being blasted open by artillery, but now it is clear that the stone wall is of no use at all. The soldiers of the Pengzhou army were barely able to hold on to the shelling of the battleship. The target of the battleship was the city gate, not them, which made them feel lucky. But when the white lime powder covered the city wall, they could no longer keep calm. The soldiers whose eyes were burnt by the lime powder wailed at the top of the city, and the lime bombs exploded one by one above their heads, and the white dust shrouded the front city wall like a mist in the face of the pervasive lime powder. The Peng Zhao army soldiers on the city wall covered their eyes and howled in groups. Although the lime powder could not cause serious injury to them, it was enough to make them lose their combat effectiveness. On the other side of the Bianshu River, Lu Fei and Lu Ozin observed the situation on the city wall. A large number of Peng Zhao soldiers were replaced, and then a large number of soldiers were replaced. Lu Ozin, it's time to change the field gun. Lu Fei said quietly. The fixed-angle naval guns on different warships and the field guns are much more flexible, and the soldiers can adjust the angle of the guns at any time according to the target. Lu Ozin understood. Lu Fei meant to let him bombard the city wall with solid bullets and lime bullets at the same time, so that some soldiers could lose their combat effectiveness and at the same time kill some others, which would cause greater psychological deterrence to the Peng Zhao army. Turning his head to look at the ready field gun, Lu Ozin said, "Fire at the enemy hiding behind the battlements." Yes. After receiving the order, the field gun immediately adjusted its angle and aimed it at the city head. And then the field battle was afraid that solid bullets would be poured on the city head at the same time. Immediately, the battlements on the city gate were directly smashed by solid bullets. Bombardment. Boom boom boom. Solid bullets flew towards the city head, but within a short period of time, the city walls of Peng Zhao City were riddled with holes. The battlements fell one by one, and the soldiers at the head of the city didn't even have a place to hide. This round of shelling made the city head more and more chaotic, but Lu Fei was not in a hurry to let the soldiers rush into the city through the temporary bridge. He was waiting for these soldiers to completely collapse. Luo Hong was waiting for Lu Fei's order, and at the same time looked at Luo Xin's artillery with admiration. The shelling continued, and there was no sign of stopping, but the Peng Zhao army on the top of the city gradually became less and less after the city wall. Mi Kuang's eyes were red, and he urged the soldiers to climb up the city wall, but none of the soldiers were willing to go up. And I go up, go up. Mi Kuang urged another group to go up the city wall, and at the same time he beheaded a soldier who had escaped from the city wall. Blood splashed. The soldiers looked at the comrade who was killed by Mi Kuang. Their eyes gradually turned red, and at this moment, someone shouted aloud, "Brothers! Stop working for these wealthy families. See? Our lives are worthless in their eyes. Our brothers didn't die under the gunfire of King Zhao, but died in their hands." Brothers, what King Qi's army wants to kill when they enter the city are these wealthy clans who oppress the common people. Our common people will only get the land to live the same life as the people of King Zhao. Don't give up in vain. We can't stop the King Zhao army. The voice sounded again. Who? Mi Kuang's eyes turned red. They frantically searched among the crowded soldiers, and he shoved away all the soldiers who stood in front of him. Finally, he found the source of the sound. It was a group of people who were helping to transport supplies for the defense of the city. One of the middle-aged people looked directly at Mi Kuang without any fear. "It's you?" Mi Kuang asked. "It's me." Hatred flashed in the youth's eyes. "Mi Kuang, you robbed me of my land, my wife and daughter, and today you want me to defend the city for you? Bah! You scumbags should be the same as the wealthy people in King Zhao." Killed one by one, Mi Kuang's face was twisted. The King Zhao army's attack had driven him into a frenzy, and he scolded, "It turned out to be you, thief. I will kill you today and let you meet that pair of sluts underground." Hearing this, the middle-aged man's eyes instantly turned red. Mi Kuang's words already explained how his wife and daughter are now. Just as Mi Kuang raised the bloody sword in his hand and charged at the middle-aged man, the middle-aged man suddenly took out a short-barreled musket from his sleeve and shot at Mi Kuang. After the gunshots passed, Mi Kuang looked at the musket in the middle-aged man's hand in disbelief. He lowered his head and glanced at his chest. Blood gurgled down his chest, and after a while, he fell down. At this time, among the middle-aged people, someone suddenly took out a firework and lit it. At this moment, the firework rushed to the sky and exploded in the air. The middle-aged man shouted, "Mi Kuang is dead. Are you still obsessed? Brothers drove these wealthy families out of Peng Zhao City, and the land here will be ours in the future." The other middle-aged men from the big clan continued to be bewitched, and the hundreds of soldiers who followed Mi Kuang immediately slaughtered these people. It's just that when they started, the soldiers from the poor people's homes also moved. They protected the middle-aged people in the middle. At this moment, a fierce horn suddenly sounded outside the city gate. The people around the middle-aged people smiled knowingly. This was the charge horn of the King Zhao army. Unlike the middle-aged people, they came from the secret guards. This action was planned by Li San Kill. The roar of anger outside the city gate was coming in more and more, and the soldiers on the city wall saw that the soldiers climbed onto the battleship and rushed directly to the city gate along the battleship. These climbed up from the other side of the battleship, lay down on the ground from the third battleship, and immediately formed a formation with soldiers in silver armor in front and musketeers in the back maintaining a tight formation. They rushed towards the city gate. Lu Fei watched the situation on the battlefield for a moment. Everyone in the Nanzhang army knew the signal of the secret guard. The signal just now showed that the secret guard must have achieved important results in the city at this time. He immediately ordered the soldiers to charge and seize the city gate. As long as the city gate was taken down and the chain bridge was rearranged, the subsequent cavalry would be able to enter the city smoothly. Bang bang. After the first group of soldiers entered the city, they immediately found a large number of Peng Zhao soldiers gathered behind the city gate. At this time, the sword and shield soldiers who were protecting the musketeers in front immediately crouched down, and the musketeers immediately took 3 shots to kill the soldiers who rushed over in the gunpowder and white smoke. The soldiers of the Peng Zhao army who rushed over fell one by one, but more soldiers rushed towards them. Chapter 554 Bounty System. Bang bang bang. The sound of muskets covered the slaughter of Peng Zhao soldiers rushing over after entering the city gate. The King Zhao army did not love to fight, but attacked from both sides under the command of the general to capture the city gate, and at the same time opened up a battlefield for the follow-up troops. The soldiers of the Peng Zhao army were still rushing, but there was obviously no rules to speak of. Mi Kuang was dead. The Peng Zhao army was like headless flies and didn't know what to do. They just instinctively rushed to the enemy in their eyes again and again. It's just that this kind of blind charge quickly turned into a rout in the volley of muskets. Unlike the Kitty army who had seen blood on the battlefield, the army in Peng Zhao city had been at ease for too long. Even if the soldiers were sturdy, the real battlefield was far away. Not a street fight. After a short period of blood, the corpses and blood on the ground made them realize what death is. Especially those soldiers from poor families. They have no reason to fight for these rich families at all. Now that the King Zhao army broke into the city, they only wanted to escape and save their lives. A Peng Zhao army soldier ran away, followed by a second, and then a group. The King Zhao army quickly occupied the open area on both sides of the city gate. Like a broken bamboo after gaining the upper hand, the subsequent musketeers continued to pour into the city, and their arrival increased the density of firepower. The Peng Zhao city army became more and more unbearable in front of long-range firearms, and retreated steadily as more and more troops from Kitty poured into the city. Some soldiers found the iron cables of the bridge. They carried the iron cables out of the city gate, and with the help of the warships, tied the iron cables from the wooden stakes at the gate of Peng Zhao city to the other side. After the iron cables were completed, the soldiers spread the thick wooden boards one by one. At this time, the tasks of the battleships were all completed, and they were all docked on the north bank. The chains were restored, and the artillery and cavalry immediately moved into the city along the bridge. Following the last cavalry into Peng Zhao city, Lu Fei came to the tent temporarily erected in front of the city gate. The battle was fought from morning to night, and now it was about to get dark. General, it's getting dark. Do you want to take advantage of the situation? Luo Xin said to Lu Fei. Now Lu Fei is the general of Nanzheng. Although the two of them talk about troubles on weekdays, he still has to obey the military orders and obey Lu Fei's dispatch on the battlefield. No, it's not good for us at night. The blurred vision is very inconvenient for the musket team to travel. Now we are setting up camp to guard against the enemy's sneak attack. After a few losses, Lu Fei now has a long memory. Just like this, the wealthy family in the city will run away. Luo Xin said. Lu Fei pondered, these wealthy families can at most take some gold and silver, but they can't take this land, mansion, cattle and sheep. Luo Xin had no choice but to nod when he heard the words, but he reminded, General Lu, this time His Highness said that there is a bounty for the attack on Peng Zhao city. The general can complain that the general did not remind you. Go away, I feel more distressed than you. The muscles on Lu Fei's face were shaking since the Chang'an rebellion. Xiao Ming announced a bounty system in the army. The system stipulates that all the spoils obtained during the expedition of the city will be rewarded with 10% of the spoils to the soldiers and generals who participated in the siege, and according to the different positions in the military, there will be different proportions of the bounty. It would be better if Lu Fei won the Peng Zhao city this time and got 1 million taels of silver. After this bounty system was promulgated, it was deeply supported by soldiers and generals, which also stimulated their desire to participate in the southern expedition. Luo Xin smiled, and he just said that, but now that the night is falling, it is indeed not suitable to continue the fight. After all, after a hard day's fighting, The soldiers are also a little tired, and there are still many remaining soldiers of the Peng Zhao army of course. Luo Xin's idea also represents the idea of a general. This is Luo Hong's firearms battalion. Unlike other three-state armies, the soldiers of this firearms battalion currently belong to a special existence in Qingzhou. Both soldiers and generals want to settle down in Qingzhou, and they need money to settle down. If this battle is won, they will be able to settle down in Qingzhou. Therefore, Luo Hong wanted to prove himself, and the soldiers and generals of the firearms battalion wanted to get money. How is it? As soon as Luo Xin came out, Luo Hong and other generals asked no. General Lu refused. Luo Xin said to Luo Hong, "Don't be impatient, I know you are eager to fight, but our goal this time is to take Pengzhou City. If something goes wrong, no one can afford it." Luo Hong nodded. He had a better understanding of Lu Fei and other Qingzhou generals. They never wanted to be as blind as other troops in the Great Yu Kingdom, but kept calm forever. With a wave of his hand, Luo Hong let the others go away. He said to Luo Xin, "I really envy you. If I could come to Qingzhou earlier, I wouldn't have to start all over again." Luo Xin is very clear about his brother's thoughts. After all, Luo Hong is the eldest son of the Luo family, and now his younger brother is more promising than himself, which inevitably makes him uncomfortable. But fortunately Luo Hong is also a general person, and he just refuses to admit defeat. That's it. When the two were chatting, the pot in Pengzhou City had already been fried, and the wealthy family in the city fled overnight with their families. The Mi family, Mi Wenyi, was disheveled at this time. He still thought that he could resist for half a month, but now King Qi's army took only 1 day to take the city gate. Now that there is no danger to defend, how can he fight against King Qi's army? And the most important thing is that after the city gate fell, the hearts of the wealthy families in the city were scattered. Who cares whether Pengzhou City can hold it or not? When Mi Kuang was killed, he was not far away. At that time, he knew that King Qi had been in Pengzhou City for a long time, and the assassination of Mi Kuang was also part of the plan. The death of Mi Kuang made him even more frightened, and he began to suspect that there were assassins sent by King Qi around him. Immediately after King Qi's army rushed into the city, he finally couldn't help but escape back to Mi's house. At this time, the Mi family was also in chaos. Everyone in the Mi family was packing up their gold and silver and preparing to escape. King Qi's army had already entered the city, and the city of Pengzhou was broken. "Do you really want to destroy my Mi family?" Mi Wenyi said to himself like a madman. Even if he fled back to Jinling City, how should he explain to King Wei? Thinking of this, he became more and more desperate. "Wenyi, let's go. People's hearts are already in chaos. It's hard to take back the water, so don't be afraid that there will be no firewood to burn." Mi Wenyi's father urged with a long sigh. Mi Wenyi followed his father to the outside. The carriage of the Mi family was waiting outside the door. It was not known when or month that he would be able to return. Chapter 555, Full Occupation. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the tower, Lu Fei and a group of generals walked out of the tent. They had already arranged the next offensive just now. After deliberation, they decided to divide their troops into 3 routes. Luo Hong and Luo Xin each led the way from north to south on the avenues on both sides of Pengzhou City. At the same time, Lu Fei ordered the cavalry captain Bai Mu to lead a small group of cavalry to attack south from the middle avenue to lure the enemy out. The secret guards in the city had already joined them last night. According to the information provided by the secret guards, there were only 1,000 cavalry in Pengzhou City, and this 1,000 cavalry also followed the nobles last night. Generally speaking, the clan children of big clans are still stubbornly resisting in the city. The status of these clan children in Pengzhou City is higher than that of ordinary soldiers, but they are below the wealthy clan. Therefore, they also belong to the minions of the wealthy clan, but Pengzhou City has their interests. It is for this reason that they cannot escape and can only continue to fight hard. It's just that the number of these soldiers is not large. After removing the tribes of the aristocrats, there are only more than 20,000 soldiers in the Pengzhou army. They were ordered to stay in the city and continue to defend, but what they didn't know was that they had become abandoned sons at this moment. Compared with the army formed by the clansmen of the big clan, the soldiers from the common people secretly came to surrender to them at night. The army formed by the clansmen of the Pengzhou army and the army formed by the common people are 2 independent armies. There is also a huge difference, but after this siege, Mi Kuang let these soldiers from the common people resist in front, which has caused dissatisfaction among many soldiers, and under the deliberate propaganda of the secret guards, more and more soldiers have surrendered. Thought for these soldiers, they don't care who rules them, as long as they can save their lives. It is enough for their families to eat, so from last night to early morning, 6,000 soldiers had surrendered in the temporary camp in front of the city gate, and some soldiers went home as deserters set off. Lu Fei gave an order. For him, today is the last battle in Pengzhou City. He wants to completely control Pengzhou City. Last night, he had already sent good news to King Zhao. He didn't want to lose face in front of Xiaoming. After receiving the order, Beimu led the cavalry towards the south of the city. The cavalry he led were the most elite cuirassiers of the King Zhao army. In addition to the saber, the cuirassiers were now equipped with 2 cavalry on both sides of each cavalry's horse. A short and powerful pulley crossbow the cavalry was dispatched, and the rumbling sound of hooves immediately resounded through the city of Pengzhou. The people in the city were all hiding at home and did not dare to come out. However, Niu Ben had always been extremely strict in governing the army, and during the occupation last night, not a single soldier harassed the people. The artillery in the city, which is full of buildings, can hardly make a difference. Luo Xin can only leave the artillery at the city gate to support them at any time. After Beimu set off, they also set off to the south of the city. At this time, the south of Pengzhou City was dead silent, and there was not a single figure on the street. When Beimu led the cavalry to arrive first, there was a look of vigilance on his face. The King Zhao army has always followed Xiaoming's adage and will never underestimate any opponent. This time he also did not underestimate the Pengzhou army. They relied on the benefits of artillery to win the city gate, but now it is clear that they will be caught in a street battle. Beimu is also the backbone of the King Zhao army. He is the earliest group of people in the King Zhao army. He used to be under Lu Fei. This time, Lu Fei felt that Beimu is in good hands, so he begged Niu Ben to let Beimu go on the expedition. Speaking of the fact that Beimu has been on the battlefield for more than 10 years and has experienced too many wars, he instinctively felt the danger in the houses on both sides. At this moment he suddenly said, "Crossbow." As soon as his voice fell, a burst of hurried footsteps suddenly sounded, and then the Pengzhou army like a tidal wave poured out from the civilian squares on both sides. Soldiers wearing red linings, jackets and scales charged towards them with swords raised, and at this moment, some soldiers with bows and arrows appeared on the roof of the Minfang. A layer of cold sweat broke out from Beimu's back. Fortunately, he didn't go too deep with years of experience. Otherwise, not only would he not be able to lure the enemy this time, but the soldiers would definitely suffer a lot of damage. Moreover, he did not keep the cavalry in a dense formation between the gallops, but moved forward in a dispersed manner, so that there was sufficient distance between the cavalry to turn around before these Pengzhou soldiers rushed out. The cavalry took out the pulley crossbow, and they shot at the archers on the roof of the house. For the first time Beimu kept in mind that the purpose of this time was to explore the road and lure the enemy. The purpose has been achieved. He is not stupid enough to use cavalry and infantry for street fighting, because this is equivalent to abandoning the most basic advantage of cavalry: retreat. After a round of shooting, Shiroki immediately ordered to retreat, and it would be too late if he didn't leave. After finding out the location of the ambush by the Pengzhou army, Beimu immediately sent scouts to inform Luo Xin and Luo Hong that they were the main force in this street battle. In his opinion, the Battle of Pengzhou City has just begun. At this time, Luo Xin and Luo Hong had heard the movement on the central street, and soon the cavalry sent by Beimu came to them and told them the information, searching one by one. Luo Xin frowned after his order was issued. The soldiers were immediately divided into a 1,000-person team, each of which was responsible for a private workshop, advancing from south to north, and Luo Hong in the east of the city also set up such a formation. Bang bang bang, the gunshots sounded quickly, and the ambush of the Pengzhou army had nowhere to hide under the carpet-like search. The battle soon started in the village. With muskets, bayonets and strict discipline and training, the King Zhao army used small horizontal lines to shoot easily. They defeated the Pengzhou army hiding in the village one after another. The villagers fought. In the morning, Luo Xin and others set off. In the evening, the two pushed the front to the south city gate. After a day of fierce fighting, they finally fully occupied Pengzhou City. There were more than 3,000 people, and more than 3,000 people were captured. The Nanzhang army also paid the price of 1,000 casualties. General, we have fully occupied Pengzhou City. In the afterglow of the setting sun, Lu Fei appeared in front of the courtyard of the Mi family. At this time, the soldiers were looking for the spoils in the courtyard of the Peng family. Lu Fei nodded. When he came, there were Pengzhou army corpses all the way, which shows the fierce battle today. Just now Luo Xin and Luo Hong were discussing the issue of prisoners of war, and he then said to Lu Fei, "General, we have captured 3,000 people. What should we do with these people? Kill them all. Lu Fei's eyes suddenly became extremely cold. Kill. Luo Xin's heart suddenly burst. Luo Hong said, General Lu, it's ominous to kill prisoners. I hope you think twice. Lu Fei seemed very firm. He said, no need to say, these prisoners must be killed. Chapter 556 Official Team. General Lu. Luo Hong's face was a little ugly just when Luo Hong wanted to say something. Luo Xin suddenly pulled Luo Hong to tell him not to say anything. Glancing at Luo Hong, Lu Fei, he said, this general can kill no matter what is ominous. This general only knows that these people are the remnants of the noble clan, and it is precisely because they are willing to be the eagle dogs of the noble clan that they will be stubbornly resisting in the city, and this will be against them. Be merciful. But did they sympathize with our dead soldiers? After a pause, Luo Hong said, these 3,000 people are just the beginning. When they attacked the city, the general said that either they should surrender, or none of the wealthy people in the city will remain after the city is destroyed. When he first came to King Zhao, Luo Xin was not puzzled by the fact that the King Zhao army hated the nobles. Later, he learned that Xiaoming almost died at the hands of the nobles several times, and he gradually understood when the local nobles were still colluding with the barbarian's brother. Don't say it anymore. This is His Highness's consistent policy. No wealthy family can exist in the land that His Highness rules. Luo Xin said. Luo Hong sighed when he heard the words. Once the emperor and the courtiers, if they used to capture the city, they would only rely on the local nobles to manage the city, but now everything has changed. He said, General Lu, it was me who was reckless. Xiao Luo, you will gradually understand the original intention of His Highness in the future. Lu Fei said. When the setting sun released the last rays of light, gunshots rang out outside Pengzhou City, and the last batch of children of the wealthy clan in Pengzhou City were executed. It's not that Lu Fei was cruel, but Lu Fei clearly remembered the destruction caused by the remnants of the wealthy family in the 6 states. The wealthy family who was forgiven by Xiaoming not only did not thank him, but thought about murdering Xiaoming. Just from this point, he could see that these wealthy clans were all a group of poisonous snakes, and the temporary submission was just the dormancy of the winter snakes, and they would still bite people when they woke up. The order to kill the prisoners this time was decided by himself. Although Xiaoming gave him room to dissolve the trilogy and hand over the property to the wealthy family to live in Pengzhou City, he still chose to kill the wealthy family who hated him so much more. Realistic. The next day, the Nanzhang army was not idle. While Lu Fei sent some soldiers to collect the spoils, he also sent Luo Hong and Luo Xin to the 6 counties that belonged to Pengzhou. These 6 counties belonged to Pengzhou City. Take these 6 counties together. June 25th, Luoxin Kepi County, Luohong Kepi County. June 27th, Luoxin Kexin County, Luohong Kedan County. June 30th, Luoxin Kesu County, Luo and Hongkongshan County. All the counties and villages within the city of Pengzhou were occupied by the Nanzhang army. On July 1st, when he learned that Xiaoming had arrived at Pengzhou City with a group of officials, and looked at the city wall that had been blown up by artillery, Xiaoming said, hey, this kid Luo Xin also saved some shells. Look. For tossing the city wall, this king has to send someone to repair it. Ha ha ha. Fiji laughed when he heard the words, and he said to Xiaoming, His Royal Highness has this important town, and it is worth spending some shells. Of course. Xiaoming was only joking. He successfully won Pengzhou City, which means that the southern gate of Weiland has been open to him since then, and other cities in Weiland are only a matter of time. However, he can't immediately attack the next city, and he can't eat more than he can chew. The most important thing now is to stabilize the city of Pengzhou and establish a government management system similar to the 6 states. In addition, recruit a group of soldiers from the local area to join the Southern Expedition Army, otherwise his soldiers will only fight less. Unless Your Highness. Knowing that Xiaoming had arrived, Lu Fei led a group of generals to greet him. Seeing Lu Fei, Xiaoming patted him on the shoulder heavily. Lu Fei, you did not disappoint this king by leading the troops alone this time. It seems that the general of the Southern Expedition has to let you continue to be the leader. His Royal Highness, when did the last general let you down? The last 2 years have also corrected a lot of problems, but I don't want to stay in the small dark room anymore. Lu Fei smiled bitterly. Well, if you know what you're wrong, you can correct it. It's a great thing to do. In the future, some battles will be fought. This king hopes that you can take care of one side like the cattle governor. Xiaoming smiled. Lu Fei was the first group of generals to follow Xiaoming in the past 2 years. Xiaoming has hidden Lu Fei in the snow, and he has not been promoted to him because he hates him. On the contrary, Xiaoming is to temper Lu Fei's temperament, Otherwise he can only be a captain. After talking to Lu Fei, Xiao Ming looked at Luo Hong and Luo Xin, and he said, "It is said that you are brothers in war, father and son soldiers in battle. It is said that you cooperated well on the battlefield." This time Luo Xin and Luo Hong clasped their fists and said, "Thank you, Your Highness, for your praise." After greeting the generals, Xiao Ming, Fiji and others walked towards the city of Pengzhou. At this time, the people in the city had dared to walk on the streets. These days, the army in the southern expedition did not commit any crimes, which made the people feel at ease and courageous. Also got bigger. One of Xiao Ming's purposes in coming to Pengzhou City this time is to bring officials who will take over Pengzhou City. After these officials take office, they will reform Pengzhou City and completely bring Pengzhou City under the management of King Zhao. Your Highness, this is the courtyard of the Mi family of the Great Clan in Pengzhou City. Lu Fei led a group of officials directly to the courtyard of the Mi family. As soon as he entered the courtyard, Xiao Ming couldn't help shaking his head and said, "This Mi family compound is much more stylish than this king's palace. Look at this vermilion lacquer corridor, this rockery, the carp in this pond, and the people in this yard. Strange flowers. No, it's just that the area of this yard is 3 or 4 times the size of the palace. When I was in Chang'an, the old minister had heard of the Mi family in Pengzhou City. Today, I see it as a very wealthy family. It's just a pity that the Mi family is obsessed with it." Still can't see through the current situation. The two were patrolling the yard, when Lu Fei brought an account book, and he said, "Your Highness, this is the property of the 36 big families in Pengzhou City." This Xiao Ming took the account book and glanced at it, which recorded real estate, fields, warehouses, and a lot of gold and silver that had not been taken away in time. Glancing at Lu Fei, Xiao Ming said, "You are in such a hurry to send the account book. Do you want to share the reward now, His Royal Highness? It's not that the generals want to divide, but the soldiers are drumming in their hearts. I don't know whether this bounty system is true or not." Lu Fei smiled bitterly. Xiao Ming handed over the account book to Fiji and said, "Elder Fei Jack, how much money are you worth in total for these properties, and share some of them with the soldiers according to the bounty system?" "Yes, Your Highness," Fiji said with a smile, and at this moment he couldn't help but sigh in admiration. In the war, many generals condoned the soldiers looting, but this would lead to lax military discipline and unnecessary losses. Now Xiao Ming asked Lu Fei to turn over all the spoils of war, and then distribute the bounty. This not only shows that the army is strictly disciplined, but also at the same time, it also benefited the soldiers who participated in the war and inspired their will to fight. Chapter 557 Jinling Earthquake. The hot sun is baking Pengzhou City, making people reluctant to stay outside. After handing over the bounty to Fiji, Xiao Ming and everyone went to the main hall of the Mi family. Xiao Ming was also a little surprised that the Battle of Pengzhou City was so smooth. After inquiring about the process of the battle between Lu Fei and Luo Xin, he gradually realized that the Pengzhou army would be defeated so quickly because they were not familiar with the tactics of the Nanzhang army at all, and they still used traditional combat methods to deal with his army. Therefore, under the long-range firepower of artillery and muskets, the Pengzhou army suffered heavy casualties, which intensified the fear of the soldiers, and caused the morale of Pengzhou City to drop. After the city gate was seized. In view of this, Xiao Ming said to Lu Fei, "Now that Pengzhou City has been taken by us, we will no longer have any natural dangers to defend. From then on, everything will be flat. Now you have to use Pengzhou City as a stronghold to continue to attack the city and loot the land and replenish your troops." Xiao Ming said thoughtfully. These days, he has been thinking about the current strategy. According to his plan, he will annex Wei land as soon as possible. In this way, he will not be attacked by the enemy on the side, and can focus on dealing with the vassal kings in the west. "Yes, Your Highness." Lu Fei bowed and said. After giving Lu Fei an order, Xiao Ming said to Fiji and other officials, "Now the Pengzhou City captured by the Southern Expedition Army, how to manage this is your business. You will count the Pengzhou City in the past 2 days. The land and the actual population, divide the land into the hands of the people. Equalizing land is the policy that Xiao Ming insists on. It is this policy that allows Xiao Ming to get the support of the people of Fengguo. Fiji has already felt the benefits of the changes brought about by this policy. After coming to King Zhao, Fiji nodded, and he suggested, "His Royal Highness, in addition to the normal land, the old minister thought that part of the good land should be given to the people who joined the army to encourage the local people to join the Southern Expedition Army, so that the Southern Expedition Army would be able to going from strength to strength." "Well, you are right. This is exactly what this king thinks. Now the fief can no longer provide soldiers for the Southern Expedition Army, and can only rely on recruiting from the occupied cities. In addition to taking out some good fields, you have to post notice to appease the people and let the people return to their hearts as soon as possible. Xiao Ming said solemnly. Fiji and other officials bowed and should. After all, he took the officials to Pengzhao Fuaya to officially take over the government affairs of Pengzhao City and its surrounding counties and villages. Jinling City. The news of the great defeat of Pengzhao City spread here along with the fugitives. After Mi Wenai told King Wei everything about it, the teacup in King Wei's hand fell to the ground, and King Wei's face turned pale and his body shook a little. Uncle Wang. Xiao Qi immediately stepped forward to support King Wei. Upon seeing this, 50,000 Pengzhao City elites and the local noble clan can't keep it for a day. What is the use of this, king? After gasping for a few breaths, King Wei said angrily, the people who come here will escort me when I to this king. Ask tomorrow, His Royal Highness. It's not that the ministers neglected their duties and collapsed before the battle, but the fact is that King Qi's muskets and artillery are too powerful. Although the soldiers resisted with their flesh and blood, it was of no use at all. Mi Wenai was shocked. This king doesn't need your explanation. I think that this king values your Mi family. I didn't expect it to be just a bunch of rotten people. Needless to say, Pengzhao City is the gateway to Wei Land. Now that Wei Land is lost, there is no danger to defend. Ben, if the king doesn't kill you, won't the guards of other cities follow you one by one? King Wei cursed His Royal Highness, spare your life. Mi Wenai cried while being dragged by the guards and was escorted down. Xiao Qi's side and said to King Wei, Uncle Wang, let go of his anger. The plan now is how to keep the land of the kingdom. This time Xiao Ming came prepared and aggressive. We can't sit still. King Wei's fat face was full of frustration, and he said, Pengzhao City was broken in just one day. How many days can other cities resist? Is it naive to kill me? Uncle Wang was feeling self-pity at this time. Xiao Ming's land was few, and he made many enemies. At this time, most of his troops were used to guard against King Zhao. Although Pengzhao failed this time, King Qi's army was also lost. It is impossible to fight again after a period of rest, and we will take this opportunity to join forces and let King Qi go south. How do I say this? Mi Wenai said that after the Qi King's army entered the city, Qiu did not commit any crimes. It can be seen that Xiao Ming's ambition is in the world, and this move is to appease the people's hearts. If this is the case, the Qi King's next target after Wei's land must be Yan's land. At that time, an envoy was sent to form an alliance with King Yan to defend against King Qi. Xiao Qi said. King Wei frowned. It's just that this king, King Yan, has always been bad. Will he agree? If Wei Di dies, King Yan will have the opportunity to face Xiao Ming's forces directly, and King Yan will naturally know which is more important. Wei and Yan are not equal in strength, and even if there is some friction, they cannot overthrow each other. But Xiao Ming is different. That he can take Pengzhao City so easily is enough to show his strength. In the face of such a strong enemy, only by joining forces can we resist. Well, you're right, not only King Yan, but this king will also send envoys to Chang'an, Liang Kingdom. If we can successfully form an alliance, we will destroy Xiao Ming. Wei Wang said bitterly. Xiao Qi nodded, bowed and said, Uncle Wang, my nephew is willing to take on the responsibility of being an envoy to repay the kindness of Uncle Wang for taking him in. King Wei looked at Xiao Qi with pity, and he said, why do you need to go there in person? Just send a few officials there. Uncle Wang, this is a big matter. Other officials are afraid that the alliance will be ruined. My nephew has no other ability, but has studied the vertical and horizontal techniques of Giguzi. Xiao Qi said. King Wei sighed. My nephew, Uncle Wang wanted to win the throne of the great Yu kingdom for you, but now he doesn't repay himself. Uncle Wang is really ashamed of you. Hearing the words, Xiao Qi hesitated for a moment, and he said, Uncle Wang, my nephew has already let go. Why can't the uncle let go? If the uncle can listen to what his nephew has to say, it would be better to become a minister to King Qi since then. Lord Xiaoyao, in this way, you can keep your honor for the rest of your life, and in my nephew's view, only the King of Qi can restore the royal homeland that day. Xiao Qi, this is the time to increase other people's ambition and destroy his own prestige. King Wei said angrily. Uncle Wang will not be a minister to Xiao Ming's child. With a sigh, Xiao Qi said, if that's the case, my nephew will follow uncle to the end. Looking at Xiao Qi steadily, King Wei didn't say what he wanted to say after all, waved his hand, and he let Xiao Qi leave. Although he is reluctant to admit it, since the Battle of Kangzhou, he has understood that he will always live in Xiao Ming's shadow. And now everything has proved that his intuition is right, but as the most favored vassal king, how could he bow his head to Xiaoming and become a minister? Chapter 558 Converter Steelmaking. P.S. There are a lot of things today. There are only 2 updates, and the update will be made up tomorrow. After staying in Pengzhou City for 3 days, Xiaoming returned to Qingzhou. He came to Pengzhou this time just to see the place of Liu Bang's Longxing. Like many people, he also has a big Han dream in his heart. The iron blood and glory of the past make him, who is now at the peak of power, dream back every midnight. The blood will be boiling, and he also wants such a prosperous world. It's just that he also understands that the road is still a long way to go. Today, the domestic problems of Dai are a mess, and it is still far away to expand the territory, but the victory of the Battle of Pengzhou has given him hope to fight against foreign affairs. He must first settle down inside. Now he is determined to solve the problem of numerous domestic vassal kings first. Only by mastering the unified Great Yu Kingdom can he be able to break into the jungle of the age of great navigation and grab food. Originally, he was going to live in Pengzhou City for a week, but another news came that he had to go back early. According to this year's shipbuilding plan, Dengzhou Shipyard officially delivered 24 warships to the fleet a few days ago. In addition to the previous 15 warships, the Dengzhou army now has 39 warships for him. These 39 warships will truly ensure that he is unhindered horizontally in the East Asian waters, and can further ensure the safety of the waterway. This time, he returned to Qingzhou not to watch the battleship, but to prepare the naval cadets from Bowen College to go to Dengzhou. Battleships are dead, but naval cadets are alive, and weapons can only exert their greatest power in the hands of humans. Therefore, before each batch of naval cadets boarded the ship, Xiaoming would come to Bowen College to meet them in person. First, he wanted to get familiar with himself and strengthen his sense of existence, and secondly, it was also to increase the loyalty of the soldiers. After all, once a warship enters the sea, it is like a runaway horse. In the era of great voyages, many regular warships were finally brought on the road of pirates by the captain, and this was not what he wanted to see. His Royal Highness, there are a total of 1,670 students on the ship this time. Yu Yun also rushed back from Dengzhou for this matter. Looking at the students who were in high spirits, he couldn't help but close his mouth with joy. For him, there was no such thing as expanding the size of the fleet. All the cadets who are about to go to Dengzhou stand in 3 rows. These cadets will play an extremely important role on the battleship, such as captain, chief mate, second mate, sea navigator, bosun, and other management positions. As for the ordinary sailors and gunners on the battleship, they do not need to study in Bowen Academy. They only need to be recruited and trained in Dengzhou. From today, you will become a member of the Navy, but this does not mean that you are qualified now. For this king, only soldiers who can protect the sea and borders of the Great Yu Kingdom and protect the shipping routes of the Great Yu Kingdom can be qualified to be called real Navy soldiers, and now is the time to test you. Xiaoming said loudly. Yes, Your Highness. A group of naval cadets roared in unison. Xiaoming nodded. The soldiers now look more and more like modern soldiers. Yu Yun looked at Xiaoming's lecture with a smile. After Xiaoming finished speaking, he took a group of naval cadets and said to Xiaoming, "My honor is loyalty, whether in Bowen Academy or in the army. The loyalty of soldiers and officials to Xiaoming is the first and foremost." It is precisely because of this that Xiaoming makes this sentence the spoken language of generals and soldier instinct. After seeing the trainees who boarded the ship one by one, Xiaoming asked the naval trainees to disband. At this time, Yu Yun said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness must have known about the Tongzhou port. King Wei cut off the supply of the port, which made the warship's crews. There were some difficulties." Xiaoming nodded lightly. "King Wei's messenger and his king made it very clear to me, since he doesn't give it, we will take it. After returning this time, you will lead the fleet to bombard Tongzhou, and at the same time cooperate with Dengzhou. The state army captured Tongzhou City, Your Highness. The last commander has long wanted to do this, so why should we suffer from King Wei's idleness?" Yu Yun said with a smile. Xiaoming sighed and said, "I used to maintain peace on the surface, but now I completely tear my face. By the way, it is one thing to win Tongzhou. The most important thing, don't forget, keep an eye on Guguruya." "Yes, Your Highness." Yu Yun bowed and said. After instructing Yu Yun about 2 things, Xiaoming walked towards the palace. Along the way, he occasionally met the sons and daughters of powerful people who could only be seen in Chang'an before. Since the Chang'an rebellion, more and more Chang'an nobles have fled to Qingzhou, And it is precisely because of this reason that King Zhao has more merchants and children of powerful people, but now these powerful children are nothing more than shedding phoenixes, not as good as chickens. They used to rely on Chang'an City, but when they arrived in King Zhao, they suddenly became alone. At first they were very uncomfortable, but soon they became businessmen in order to survive. Even Princess Pingyang is now doing business honestly in the Chamber of Commerce, but in the name of the princess, her business is getting bigger and bigger during this time. She was also building a white sugar workshop and opening a dyeing workshop, but she was very busy. Xiaoming did not expect that the chaos in Chang'an would bring such a prosperous scene to King Zhao, because even if these dignitaries fled, they brought a lot of gold and silver with them. These silver flowers in King Zhao greatly promoted local consumption. According to Pang Yukin, even the price of houses in King Zhao City has more than tripled. Thinking all the way, Xiaoming returned to the palace. At this time Fei Yu'er and Concubine Zhen were talking and laughing in the pavilion in front of the pond. After the initial grief, Concubine Zhen's mood gradually recovered, which made Xiaoming relieved. Although Concubine Zhen was only the mother of her predecessor, Xiaoming, but since he arrived here, she has been helping Xiaoming sincerely. For such a kind and benevolent woman, he maintained the most basic respect. Looking at the two of them, Xiaoming didn't bother them, but went directly to his study. The war is continuing, but the development of science and technology cannot be stagnant. After all, the level of science and technology in King Zhao is not comprehensive enough, so as long as he has spare time, he will go back to compiling scientific and technological materials. What Xiaoming wants to recommend this time is the converter steel making technology. With the advent of steam engines, more and more industries need steel, and the original crucible iron making has no way to meet the current demand. In the past, Xiaoming did not implement this technology because there was no qualified oxygen blowing equipment before the steam engine was introduced. Now that there is a steam engine, he can use the steam engine to solve this difficulty. When he arrived in the study, Xiaoming started to describe the unfinished part with a pen. He had already completed part of it a few days ago, and now there is still a quarter of the drawings left. Once these drawings are completed, they can be delivered to the steel mill to produce steel-making equipment. Once the converter steel-making technology breaks through, the quality of steel in King Zhao will skyrocket, and the barrel will be able to withstand higher-strength gunpowder. Chapter 559 Furnace Lining Materials. It was quiet in the study. After a while, Xiaoming drew the blueprints, and suddenly there was footsteps outside the study. Your Highness, the old slave is back. Hearing this voice, Xiaoming brought a smile to the corner of his mouth. It was none other than Jin Dafu. This time, Xiaoming suddenly remembered that the converter steel-making method was not a whim. The most important thing was that Jin Dafu had discovered a magnesite ore in Feng, and this ore was the material needed for the alkaline furnace lining. In 1856, the British Bessemer invented the bottom-blown acid converter steel-making method. This method was the beginning of the modern steel-making method. It produced a large amount of cheap steel for Europe and further promoted the Industrial Revolution in Europe. However, because this method cannot remove sulfur and phosphorus, the development is limited. In 1879, the Thomas bottom-blowing alkaline converter steel-making method appeared in Europe. This method uses a converter with an alkaline lining to process high-phosphorus pig iron. Further improve the quality of steel. Because of the lessons learned, Xiaoming transitioned from acid lining to alkaline lining. Before, he did not introduce the converter steel-making method because of material limitations. Now that magnesite is found, the material of the lining will not be a problem. Come in, Xiaoming said. At this time, the door of the study was pushed open, and Jin Dafu walked in without a carefree manner. With a smile on his face, he stretched out a stone from his arms and said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness, this is the magnesite mine." Xiaoming nodded. The ore in Jin Dafu's hands was square, with a very smooth surface, similar to the crystals of table salt, but Xiaoming recognized at a glance that it was magnesite. You can't be wrong, this is magnesite. Xiaoming grinned. He said, "Now your prospecting team is getting more and more sophisticated, and the harvest in Leizhou during this period is not bad." Jin Dafu's face was a little dark now, and he smiled with white teeth, and he said, "Your Highness, this is also a coincidence, but Leizhou is really a treasure. Not only this Lingmei mine, but also many gold and silver mines have been found. Waiting for mining. The gold and silver mines will not move for the time being. If the magnesite mine needs to be moved, at least some must be collected and used. Now the world is in chaos. Even if you have money, you can't buy anything. Bartering is the right way." Xiaoming said thoughtfully. As Jin Dafu said, "Leizhou is indeed a treasure. Not only does the gold mine have the largest reserves in the country, but the magnesite reserves are also the second in the country. The discovery of magnesite this time was also an accident when looking for gold and silver mines found. Yes, Your Highness, the old slave will arrange this after he returns. Jin Dafu said. In the past 3 years, Jin Dafu has suffered a lot from an old housekeeper to a master of ore, and it is precisely because of his hard work that Xiaoming has spent the most difficult time in the beginning. During this period of time, the prospecting team has become more and more mature. After thinking about it, he decided not to let Jin Dafu go to the mine in person. After all, Jin Dafu is now in his 50s. After pondering for a while, he said, "Dafu, when you come back this time, don't run around with the prospecting team. This king established a minerals department in Qingzhou. From now on, you will be in charge of the minerals department and manage the mines in the country." "The field will do, Your Highness. Is there something wrong with this old slave?" Jin Dafu looked frightened, shaking his head with a wry smile. Xiaoming said, "Where did you want to go? It's just that you are old now, and the mother concubine has no one to talk to after returning from Chang'an this time. You serve the mother concubine for more than 10 years. Nian, if you are here, I can accompany the mother and concubine to relieve the boredom." Mentioning concubine Zhen, Jin Dafu sighed. This time the Chang'an rebellion is really pitiful for the maiden. Since this is the case, the old slave will leave the mine search to his nephew, and now he has achieved some success in Bowen College, and let him go out to experience. Xiaoming nodded. When he visited the mine last time, Xiaoming saw Jin Dafu's nephew. This time Jin Dafu mentioned it, and he agreed to it. The master and servant said some more words. Xiaoming took Jin Dafu to the backyard. During this time, Jin Dafu had been running around, but he had never seen concubine Zhen miss. Seeing concubine Zhen, Jin Dafu trotted over, suddenly knelt down in front of concubine Zhen, and cried when his eyes were sore since his escape. There are only two most important people in Jin Dafu's life. One is concubine Zhen and the other is his nephew. She has served by concubine Zhen for more than 10 years, and concubine Zhen is both a master and a relative to Jin Dafu. Concubine Zhen Ben Wang was joking with Fei Yu'er, when suddenly a dark man knelt down in front of her, but she leaned back in shock, until she realized that it was Jin Dafu, and she was relieved. She first gave Xiaoming a blank look. "Minger, the mother-in-law asked Jin Dafu to come to Qingzhou to serve you. How could you let him go out and do the hard work of finding mines?" When she arrived in Qingzhou, concubine Zhen asked Xiaoming about the whereabouts of Jin Dafu, and she also knew where Jin Dafu had gone. At this time, seeing Jin Dafu like this, she couldn't help laughing bitterly. For a while Xiaoming wanted to explain, but was snatched by Jin Dafu. He said, "Madam, Your Highness is because of trusting the old slave, and he is not at ease when the matter of finding mines is left to others." Concubine Zhen sighed. "You have this temper. You have always been a good person. It's good to come back this time." "When are you going to go back?" His Royal Highness said to let the old slave stay in Qingzhou, and there is no need to go out in the future. Jin Dafu said. Concubine Zhen nodded, glanced at Xiaoming and said, "Well, it's almost the same. You will accompany me to talk and relieve the boredom. I have been here in Qingzhou for a while, and I still haven't been out of the palace, and you will accompany me another day. Follow me around in and out of Qingzhou City." "Nang Niang, leave this to the old slave," Jin Dafu said happily. Xiaoming breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing this. Concubine Zhen had been staying in the palace for a while now, and now she was willing to prove that she was finally getting rid of the knot. After chatting with concubine Zhen for a few more words, Xiaoming went to the steel workshop with a blueprint. Jin Dafu came back and confirmed that the magnesite was real, and now he can set up a converter steel making production line once converter steel making is put on the agenda. This means that a large amount of cheap steel will be possible, but the only fly in the ointment is the oxygen blowing technology in this converter steel making. In fact, due to technical limitations, air was blown instead of oxygen in the initial converter steel making. The real oxygen blowing technology appeared in 1952. As for industrial oxygen production, he has also studied, and now Qingzhou cannot overcome this technology at all. It is a high technology to condense the air to more than 100 degrees below the order and then separate it. So in view of this, he still decided to use the traditional method of blowing air. After all, this method was still not backward even during the First World War, and it was enough for him to use. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 560 Steel Production Line. The molten steel flows in the crucible mixed with heat waves, and the steel workshop is as hot as a furnace in the hot summer. After coming out of the palace, Xiao Ming went directly to the iron and steel workshop. After a while, his clothes were soaked with sweat. His Royal Highness, it's too hot here, let's discuss this outside. Chen Wenlong advised that ordinary people would find it unbearable to stay in the steel workshop for a while, and he was worried that Xiao Ming would not be suitable here. Looking at the shirtless slave craftsman who is working hard, Xiao Ming said, "No need, this king is not so squeamish. By the way, I heard that the steel workshop has changed a workshop supervisor. Where's he?" Chen Wenlong pointed to the young man who was rushing here not far away and said, "Your Highness, the one in front he is a student of Bowen College, and he is studying steel production. He just took office a month ago, and as His Highness said, I mentioned this converter steel making thing, but later I just said that there is no material, so I didn't mention it again." "Oh." Xiao Ming showed an interested look. After 3 years of training, more and more students are now entering various workshops in Qingzhou. It's just because they are limited by the conditions. They have mastered many things, but they suffer from not having them condition fulfilled. However, there is no way to do this. In contemporary his country, he used to be poor and nothing at all. At that time, when overseas scientists returned home, they started from scratch, but there is one thing he can't compare to. At that time, the whole country focused on production, and now the environment he lives in is still in war, so he can only achieve it in the same way Meng Kuo sees His Highness. The young man who claimed to be Meng Kuo looked like a scholar, just like the craftsman in the workshop. At this time, the young man was also better armed, and his body was covered with black iron filings. Looking at Meng Kuo up and down, Xiao Ming said, "Chen Wenlong said that you came from Bowen College. Since that's the case, this king will test you. This converter steel making is acidic and alkaline, and the one that produces iron is of high quality. Returning to your highness, it is alkaline." Meng Kuo said, "Sulfur and phosphorus in iron cannot be removed from acid linings, but alkaline linings can. Why get out sulfur and phosphorus? For steel making, phosphorus is a harmful substance. The presence of phosphorus increases the hardness and brittleness of iron. Excellent pig iron should contain less phosphorus, while sulfur promotes the combination of iron and carbon, making iron hard and brittle, and has a low level of synthesis with iron. Iron sulfide with a melting point makes pig iron hot, brittle, and reduces the fluidity of molten iron, so pig iron with high sulfur content is not suitable for casting small parts." Meng Kuo was talking, Chen Wenlong was beaming. Xiao Ming couldn't help but ask, "This king?" asked Meng Kuo, "What are you happy about, His Royal Highness?" This Meng Kuo was selected by the Xiaoguan from Bowen College, and his response is fluent now, which proves that Xiaoguan's vision is correct. Chen Wenlong laughed. Xiao Ming was also very satisfied with Meng Kuo's answer in his heart. No matter whether he had the conditions or not, at least he had mastered the knowledge. He asked again, "What is the oxidant in converter steel making? What is the slag making material?" "The oxidizing agent is only iron ore and oxygen, and the slag is lime." Meng Kuo was calm and comfortable. Xiao Ming nodded and asked some more in-depth questions. Meng Kuo's answers were straightforward, which made him even more satisfied. After a pause, he said, "With you here, this king can safely hand over the converter steel making production line to you." "Converter steel making?" Meng Kuo exclaimed when he heard the words. "Yes, this king has found the basic lining material of the converter, and now the basic converter steel making method can be realized. Next, you will lead the craftsmen of the steel workshop to produce the converter, and at the same time build a production line to improve the steel production yield," Xiao Ming said while handing over the blueprint to Meng Kuo. After taking the drawing, Meng Kuo couldn't wait to open it. As Xiao Ming said, the equipment required for the entire production line was marked on it, and the drawings also included the structure diagram of the specific equipment. "Don't be afraid of failure. If you can't make it the first time, you can try again." Xiao Ming said to Meng Kuo that any technological innovation will encounter various problems in the early stage. In Xiao Ming's opinion, this converter steel making has to fail a few times. Only then can we learn the tricks from practice. But now that the technology is ready, the realization is not far off, and once Qingzhou can get a lot of cheap steel, it will be possible to build rails that require a lot of steel, and steam locomotives will no longer be an extravagant hope to run in day. At the same time, The large increase in steel production will also improve the war capability and make the production of weapons easier. Most of the troops will not stay in the era of cold weapons, as they are now. Mengkuo looked at the blueprint carefully and said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness, the official has been waiting for such a technology to be realized. Your Highness can rest assured that Mengkuo will build a production line, even if he does not eat or drink." Xiaoming nodded. The technical difficulties of converter steel making are converter and oxygen blowing. Now the problems have been solved. As for other issues such as charging and molten steel shaping, they are the same, and no further research is needed. In the next few days, Xiaoming and Mengkuo have been discussing the establishment of the production line. Some of the facilities were also delivered to the craftsmen for production. On the 5th day, the mine sent the first batch of magnesite ore. This batch of ore was mined for experimentation by Xiaoming's order. After calcination, grinding, and casting, the lining of the converter was formed. After completing this step, the rest is a matter of course. Xiaoming does not want to continue to participate. After all, he does not want to dispel Mengkuo's enthusiasm because in his opinion, a leader should be moderately lazy. Otherwise, his subordinates will develop the problem of laziness. Stepping away from the converter steel-making business, Xiaoming continued to focus on the current chaos at this time. A piece of news brought by Wang Zhuan made him sweat. King Wei sent messengers to form an alliance with King Yan, King Zhao and King Liang? Xiaoming asked anxiously. "Yes, Your Highness." Wang Zhuan's expression was solemn. "And now the messenger has arrived at King Yan's place. It is the news sent back by our spies in Baoxiao. It seems that King Wei is really jumping off the wall this time." Xiaoming's face was heavy. This was the danger of subjugation to him. If the 4 kings came to attack him at the same time, he would definitely be unable to resist. After all, in this era, the advantages of firearms could not completely offset the crowd tactics of the cold weapon troops. In fact, the real weapon to end the cold weapon war is the machine gun, and for him, it is still impossible to come up with this thing. His Royal Highness, if King Wei's treachery succeeds, it will be a disaster for us. The lower official thinks that it is time to assassinate the envoy of King Wei to delay the alliance. Wang Zhuan said this can only cure the symptoms, not the root cause. If one messenger dies, there will inevitably be a second messenger. Now we should think about how to destroy this alliance. Xiaoming said bitterly. Chapter 561. P.S. There is another chapter below. The original plan was to make up for it today, but the leader caught a code word at work and scolded it. Today, the two of them have completely torn their faces. It doesn't matter. I'm not even a dog in the company. After working hard for 4 years, the salary is not as good as someone who came in and worked for 2 months. I'm disappointed. 4 more. Could it be that Your Highness wants to assassinate King Wei? There are so many guards around King Wei. How easy is it to assassinate him? Xiaoming shook his head and said, "This king will also send envoys to King Yan, King Zhao and King Liang to resolve this crisis." After a pause, he said, "How do you know the situation of King Yan, King Liang, and King Zhao now?" Wang Zhuan recalled for a moment and said, "Wei Wang and Yan Wang are feudal enemies. There was friction on the Wei Yan border more than once, and soldiers on both sides also suffered casualties. As for Yan Wang, he has been very low-key after the Chang'an rebellion, neither like Chu Wang. Embracing the prince did not point to King Zhao for rebellion, but according to the information obtained by the lower officials, the local craftsmen in Baoxiao have been stepping up the forging of weapons during this period of time, so it can be seen that King Yan has an idea now. King Yan has always been good at forbearance. He is neither self-reliant nor has any conflict with King Zhao. This shows that he is preparing to be a wall." Xiaoming frowned. Wang Zhuan continued, "As for the king of Zhao, who is now using troops against the king of Shu, but the land of Shu is mountainous, it is easy to defend and difficult to attack. So far the king of Zhao and the king of Shu are only evenly divided, and the king of Liang and the king of Zhao have the same wolf ambitions, and both of them have the same ambition. Recognizing the thief as the father, but under the mediation of the barbarians, King Liang and King Zhao seem to have done nothing wrong now, but according to the news from the lower officials, King Liang seems to have the intention to use troops against His Highness. King Liang regards the second prince as his own, and this prince has made the second prince demoted to a commoner. He naturally holds a grudge, but if he wants to attack this prince, he must pass the level of Prince Yong. For the time being, there is nothing to be afraid of, but he is the easiest person to form an alliance with King Wei." Xiaoming said. Wang Zhuan nodded. As for the barbarians now, they seem to be taking advantage of the fishermen. During this period of time, King Zhao and King Liang attacked the city and looted the land, and the city in Guansong was basically occupied by the two, and half of the spoils they received were all handed it over to the barbarians. The barbarians will be able to recover soon after a long time. This news made Xiaoming also worried. Bishan was demoted in the Battle of Jizhao, and the Blood Wolf tribe was not as good as before. Moreover, the barbarians starved to death many cattle and sheep in the past 2 winters, and the food was scarce. Now the kings of Zhao and Liang have used the wealth of the great Yu kingdom. Feeding a barbarian is like feeding a tiger with one's body. When the tiger has enough to eat and drink, and has enough strength, it is time to stretch out its sharp claws. It's just that although he is worried, he can't stop him at all. The only way is to strengthen his strength and unify the north as soon as possible, and before that, he must in X way land safely and not be besieged. Thinking of this, he said to Wang Zhuan, "You now quickly call Zan Xingcheng and Pang Yukin, and this king wants to discuss this matter with him." Wang Zhuan replied yes, turned around and exited. Half an hour later, Pang Yukin and Zan Xingcheng appeared in the palace after he told the information Wang Zhuan had obtained. The two were also shocked. Pang Yukin said, "Your Highness, you must not let King Wei's plan succeed, otherwise the situation of Fengou will be extremely difficult." "His Royal Highness, since King Wei can send envoys to attack me together, we can also send envoys to dismantle their alliance. Please, Your Highness, hand over this matter to Your Highness. Your Highness will not disappoint Your Highness." Zan Xingcheng said aloud. Xiaoming looked at Zan Xingcheng, and he said, "This king knows that you are resourceful, but there is no great benefit in this matter, and it is difficult to defeat King Wei's strategy. After all, whether it is King Zhao, King Liang or King Yan, all this king is a thorn in the flesh." In the past, King Zhao was shy about this king because King Wei and King Yuan both served as a barrier for the king. His Royal Highness said that, but King Zhao wants to get the land of Bashu. He has already launched 100,000 troops in Shenbing frontier, and it is difficult to get a way to deal with this for a while. This time Zan Xingcheng will go to express the covenant between His Royal Highness and King Chu. If the King of Zhao and the King of Wei are allies, we will sell the muskets and artillery to the King of Shu, and he will certainly have difficulty in taking over the land of Shu. Well, this is a solution, but what if King Zhao is determined to be the enemy of this king? Xiaoming asked His Royal Highness. The King of Shu has the third prince as his lord, and he is bound to obey the dispatch of the third prince. If the King of Zhao comes to attack, we will use the muskets and artillery as bait to let the King of Chu instruct the King of Shu and Shenbing's borders. If the King of Zhao comes to attack at that time, the rear will inevitably be empty. How can you give up Chang'an with the character of King Zhao at this time?" Zan Xingcheng said thoughtfully. "In this way, you can convince King Zhao that there are only King Yan and King Liang left. Among them, King Liang does not need to go there. He will definitely be in trouble with King Wei. Now the most important thing is King Yan." Xiaoming said. Pang Yukin said with a faint smile, "Your Highness, the dispute between King Wei and King Yan is only because of the land of the feudal kingdom, and the place where the most conflicts are concentrated is the place of Shaoxiao. Since King Wei can persuade King Yan to attack us, we can also persuade King Yan to join us in attacking Wei. But His Highness only needs to promise to give Shaoxiao and its surrounding counties to King Yan." Zan Xingcheng agreed and said, "Pang Xiaofu's words are very true. This Shaoxiao is rich, and it is also the ancestral home of King Yan. King Yan has always been obsessed with Shaoxiao. If we promise Shaoxiao to King Yan, he will definitely consider it. If he is still obsessed, it is not impossible. The lower official can say that it is a matter of fighting with King Wei now or just thinking of His Highness. The big deal is that we and King Wei will stop fighting and attack Yan together. Wei Yan is already suspicious of each other. When the time comes, the covenant will naturally cannot be achieved. As the saying goes, the three cobblers of the three kingdoms." Huge Liang, Xiaoming asked Zan Xingcheng and Pang Yukin to come here this time. "Yes, Your Highness." Zan Xingcheng said. Pang Yukin stroked his beard satisfactorily, and said, "Being able to bend and stretch a man, His Highness now knows how to abandon the current small interests and seek greater interests now than before." Pang Xiaofu don't want to laugh at this king. In fact, this king is just helpless. If this king can resist the four kings with his own strength, why do these conspiracies are necessary? The situation in the Great Yu Kingdom is no different from the Warring States period, and we are equivalent to the Rising Dakin. None of the other vassal kings are our opponents. At this time, we are bound to be afraid. However, a big country is a small country. It can handle the relationship between each other with ease. It's all in our hands. Pang Yukin nodded. His Royal Highness said it very well, but King Wei is so harassing His Highness, it must not make him comfortable. The lower official thought that he would teach King Wei another lesson. This king has already handed over this matter to Yu Yun. Tongzhou is only 100 miles away from Jinling City, and along the Yangtze River you can directly reach Jinling City. This time, this king will make him unable to advance or retreat. Chapter 562, Capture Tongzhou City. Exactly, since King Wei's heart to destroy the kingdom is not dead, we must attack Wei Land as soon as possible, and retaliate. My minister agrees. In the main hall, the three rulers and ministers reached a consensus after deliberation. After all, Zan Xingcheng and Pang Yukan left. Yan Diancheng and Zan Xingcheng had to prepare for this mission. After all, this mission was also very dangerous. Although the two countries are not at war with each other, if they encounter an unreasonable person, they will be in trouble. It's just that he is not at ease about changing the person on the mission. After all, Zan Xingcheng has a flexible mind and is good at adapting to changes, so he might be able to resolve the crisis. However, he was out of reach for this envoy, and the only thing he could do now was to make a quick decision, as Pang Yukan said, to completely control Wei Di in his own hands. Thinking of this, he gave Yu Yun an order again, asking him to lead the fleet to seize Tongzhou, go up the Yangtze River to bombard Jinling City, and at the same time let him find a suitable place to land along the river. As the saying goes, capture the thief first and capture the king. In this case, after he is ready, he will directly attack Jinling City, so as to attack the north and the south. The next day, Zan Xingcheng took a group of entourage from Qingzhou to Yandi. On the same day, Yu Yun led the naval cadets to Dengzhou. After practicing in Dengzhou for half a month, Yu Yun took 24 battleships and 12,000 Dengzhou troops to Tongzhou. 4 days later, Tongzhou City appeared in front of him. Just a month ago, this port was not available for warships, but now it is being handled by soldiers layer by layer, and any merchant ships in Qingzhou refused to dock here. Even some merchant ships were detained maliciously, and merchants were arrested as Qingzhou fine craftsmen. When he got this news, Yu Yun was very angry. King Wei was very ambitious, and it was well known that he was not willing to form an alliance with Qingzhou. Therefore, the soldiers had long been dissatisfied with King Wei, and now Xiaoming ordered the capture of Tongzhou, which made the soldiers seem to have found a way to vent their anger at Tongzhou Wharf. Seeing 20 warships appear on the sea, the soldiers guarding the wharf showed a look of fear. They had never seen such a warship appear at Tongzhou Wharf at one time. Now that Tongzhou Wharf has clearly refused to dock any ships in Qingzhou, there is only one possibility for so many warships to appear here, and that is war. Go and report to the general. A large number of warships in Qingzhou have appeared at sea. The commander of the Tongzhou Military Academy guarding the dock ordered. A soldier nodded and immediately ran into the city on horseback. At this time, the battleships on the sea began to adjust their formation, and they were lined up in a straight line. After the formation was completed, a thunderous sound like a large earthquake sounded, and white smoke and flames rose from the sea, and the black solid bullets were like raindrops. Usually shot at Tongzhou Wharf. The Tongzhou soldiers were shocked. They had never seen such a hell-like scene. The soldiers who were hit fell directly into a pool of blood and died in a tragic state. As long as they were hit by the shells on the dock, they were all torn apart, but only for a short time. Time was messed up by Tongzhou Wharf. Intensive salvos of artillery shells fired Tongzhou soldiers everywhere to find a place to hide, but soldiers kept getting hit and let out a scream before dying. At this moment, the pure as hell on earth. Yu Yun observed the situation of Tongzhou Wharf through a telescope. He had a deep understanding of wars. Wars were always tragic, but for the unification of the Great Yu Kingdom and for the Great Yu country to face foreign enemies in unison, the war must go on. Great benevolence is not benevolent. He learned this truth from Xiaoming. If he is kind to King Wei, the Great Yu Kingdom will never have a day of great reunification. Cannot be eradicated. Maybe one day history will cast Xiaoming as the first tyrant of the ages, but he will not regret what he did today, because there is no rebirth without destruction. Captain Yi, it's up to you. Yu Yun said to the general standing beside him. This person is none other than Dengzhou Governor Yi Qingyan. Putting away the binoculars, Yi Qingyan nodded. Finally, it's our Dengzhou army's turn to go into battle. Soldiers, we will fight to the death. We want to show the soldiers of the Qingzhou army. Our Dengzhou army is not a pretentious one. Yes, General. The soldiers roared in unison. Yu Yun nodded with a smile. At this time, he ordered the soldiers to put down the boat on the battleship, and the Dengzhou army went down to the boat along the rope ladders on both sides, and rowed the boat to the Tongzhou pier. At this time, the artillery fire of the battleship did not stop, and it was still covering the landing of the Deng Xiao army. When more than 100 small boats arrived at the dock, the 1,000 soldiers above immediately seized the important road on the dock. When the soldiers completely controlled the pier, the warships staying at sea approached the pier, which was to prevent the warships from being destroyed by the enemy. When the battleship arrived at the dock, the remaining soldiers began to disembark, and the field guns were also hoisted from the battleship. Yi Qingyan also went to the pier at this time. At this time, the pier was full of Tongzhou army soldiers, and more Tongzhou army soldiers had fled to Tongzhou City under the fierce firepower of the battleship before the siege. Yi Qingyan got the information that there are 40,000 soldiers in Tongzhou City. This is because of the problem of Japanese invasion along the coast. There are so many soldiers. However, he was not afraid at all in the face of an enemy 4 times his size. He also knew the news that Pengzhou City was taken by Lu Fei. For him, he did not want to lose to Lu Lunatic. The soldiers were quickly assembled, and Yi Qingyan left some soldiers to guard the pier, and the rest all marched towards Tongzhou City. He did so much to prevent a back road from being cut off. Compared with Pengzhou City, Tongzhou City is a flat place, and Tongzhou Wharf is only a few miles away from Tongzhou City. After walking along the avenue for less than half an hour, Yi Qingyan arrived at Tongzhou City. Outside Tongzhou City was a large open area. Yi Qingyan quickly arranged the soldiers in a line. At this time, he looked at the Tongzhou wall. To his surprise, he saw the artillery. This King Wei no longer has artillery pieces in Pengzhou City, but rather in Tongzhou City. Isn't this deliberately making it difficult for me? This lunatic is really out of luck. However, although he complained, he still had to think about how to solve this problem. According to his observation, there were 10 artillery pieces in front of Tongzhou City, and what he asked the scouts to observe was that there were 10 artillery pieces guarding the 4 walls. As a result, his idea of attacking a city wall without artillery was in vain. When he was worried, the artillery captain of the Deng Xiao army said, "Don't forget, Governor, the artillery sold to the King of Wei by His Highness is the worst. After hitting 3 miles, our artillerymen can directly kill their artillery." Chapter 563 Glory and Money. P.S. There is another chapter at noon. Boom boom boom. The roar of field artillery broke the silence of the battlefield after the artillery captain proposed to use the artillery to kill the artillery. Yi Qingyan took this method immediately because it is located on a flat plain. Tongzhou City is safe on all sides. At this time, Yi Qingyan's place is the rice field that has just been harvested. At first glance, the field of vision is very wide. Deploying the soldiers only 500 meters away from Tongzhou City, Yi Qingyan ordered the shelling. More than 30 artillery pieces fired in salvos, and the shells smashed into the city walls of Tongzhou City. 10 artillery pieces were deployed on the front wall of Tongzhou City. These artillery pieces were originally intended to guard against Japanese invasions along the coast, but now they have become Tongzhou City's first line of defense against the Deng Xiao army. However, what King Wei and the other vassal kings would not have thought was that Xiaoming had given them a hand from the very beginning. The Tongzhou soldiers who were going to use artillery to attack the Deng Xiao army were shocked. The Deng Xiao army's artillery seemed to have eyes. Every time the artillery shells were fired, it would land on the side of the artillery. For a time, the Tongzhou artillery suffered heavy casualties, and the artillery on the city wall also deviated from the position by the shell. Moreover, the city wall of Tongzhou is far less thick than that of Pengzhou City in such a military town. The frontal city wall was quickly beaten to pieces, and the soldiers defending Tongzhou City were in chaos for a while. Go forward. Yi Qingyan ordered the soldiers to approach Tongzhou City. After solving the artillery on the city wall, the soldiers stopped 200 meters outside the city. The artillery reloaded at this time and bombarded the front gate. The wooden gate was unable to withstand the attack of the 12-pounder, and soon collapsed in the artillery fire. At this time, Yi Qingyan led the soldiers to continue to approach the city wall. When he reached a position of 90 meters, he ordered the soldiers to shoot at the same time. Tongzhou soldiers also began to use bows and arrows to fight back, but compared to the more than 10,000 soldiers who used muskets, the Tongzhou archers on the city's head were simply insignificant under the fierce shooting. The Tongzhou soldiers on the Tongzhou city wall could not raise their heads at all, and at this moment, 1,000 troops rushed into Tongzhou. The battlefield was filled with a roar of artillery and muskets. The soldiers of Tongzhou City had never seen such a war, and the gates that had previously resisted the enemy were vulnerable in front of the artillery outside the battlefield. The commoners looked at all this numbly. When the Japanese pirates attacked the city, they looked at Tongzhou City this way, and they still look at Tongzhou City this way today. For them, It doesn't matter who rules Tongzhou City, because in their eyes, Tongzhou City is a place where the rich and powerful live. It has nothing to do with them. They only have their own home in their hearts. King Guyan noticed this situation, and just outside the battlefield, the commoners watched the two sides fighting as if they were watching a play, and none of the commoners raised their arms and came to help Tongzhou City defend the city. He suddenly felt a burst of sadness. Qingzhou in the past was not like this. But now the people of Qingzhou are gradually awakening in the national consciousness of the country. Deliberately promoted by the newspapers, the phrase, "every man is responsible for the rise and fall of the world," is no longer exclusive to the nobles, and the common people gradually understand the significance of this phrase. And what does the country have to do with me? This kind of language of subjugation has also been thrown into the dung heap, and it has become a degenerate language that everyone spurns. Those who flatter these words have ulterior motives. The people watching outside the city made King Guyan suddenly aware of the current situation in Tongzhou. If Tongzhou officials and generals won the hearts of the people, how could these people be so indifferent? Presumably these commoners must have a hard life on weekdays, and they have long hated the officials and nobles in the city. With such a folklore, the combat effectiveness of the Tongzhou City army can be imagined. In addition, after the Japanese pirates landed in Tongzhou City, generals had fled several times in the past, and King Guyan's confidence was greatly increased. The charge horn resounded throughout Tongzhou City at this moment. After the 1,000-man team entered the city, King Guyan led the other soldiers and rushed into the city. The Tongzhou army, from the generals to the soldiers, was frightened by the Dengzhou army's fearless appearance. Bearing arrows from the city, the Dengzhou army wearing dark green robes was like a tiger entering a flock. The soldiers of the Tongzhou army who were facing the battle, and the soldiers of the Dengzhou army stood in a salvo, took up their bayonets, and lined up in a tight formation to charge at the enemy. For Qingzhou, for the bounty. King Guyan shouted a slogan. This sentence has stimulated the blood of the soldiers more and more. For Qingzhou, it means loyalty, and for bounty, it is for a rich life. Before coming to Tongzhou, they had heard about the Nanzhang army. This time, the spoils collected by the expedition to the south of Pengzhou City finally totaled 3 million taels of silver, of which 300,000 taels of silver were taken out to reward the soldiers. Except for the generals who were slightly more, each soldier was basically allocated 12 taels of silver. Just this battle is equivalent to the salary of 2 years in the army at this time. Whether it is for glory and loyalty or for money, they will take Tongzhou City. Kill. At this moment, the Dengzhou army gave full play to the advantages of combining hot weapons and cold weapons. Facing the enemy at a distance, the Dengzhou army stood still and fired, and a salvo at close range, then charged with a bayonet. At first, the Tongzhou army tried to prevent Dengzhou from entering the city by relying on its superior strength. However, in the face of the Dengzhou army's combination of far and near, the Tongzhou army suffered heavy casualties in time, and soon the Tongzhou army disintegrated. In order to save their lives, the soldiers lost their fighting spirit and fled one after another. In the chaotic situation, the Dengzhou army was like a broken bamboo, and they fought along the north gate to the south gate. After a day and night of fierce fighting, the Dengzhou army fully occupied Tongzhou City. The official military took over Tongzhou City. King Guyan organized soldiers to repair the city walls and gates overnight. This time they attacked Tongzhou and took the advantage of being unprepared. Because of the advantage of artillery, they were able to enter the city quickly, which made many Tongzhou soldiers have not realized what happened. However, Tongzhou is an important port in the Wei land, but now there are thousands of merchant ships moored in the port, and now these merchant ships are all under the control of Yu Yun. At this time, the loss of Tongzhou King Wei must be furious, because this is equivalent to breaking the foundation of King Wei's maritime trade. The distance from Jinling City to Tongzhou is about 400 miles. King Guyan believes that King Wei will definitely send a large army to seize the city. Therefore, he had to repair the city's defenses in advance, and let Yu Yun transport the cannons from the battleship to the city. In this way, the city of Tongzhou became an iron wall. Moreover, Tongzhou City was built near the sea. At this time, Yu Yun's battleship echoed at sea, and he was not worried about the supply being cut off. This Tongzhou City can provide supplies. Of course, they can also transport supplies. According to Xiao Ming's order, he will build Tongzhou City into a bridgehead for attacking Jinling City. After issuing many orders, King Guyan immediately dispatched soldiers to convey the situation of Tongzhou battle to King Zhao, and reported the details of this Tongzhou battle to Xiao Ming. Chapter 564, Exemption expires. As the saying goes, there is fire in July, which is a sign that the temperature of the year turns from hot to cold 3 days after the Battle of Tongzhou. The situation about the battle in Tongzhou spread to Qingzhou, and the converter steel-making production line was also steadily under construction during this period. His Royal Highness, this time we took Tongzhou by surprise. After King Wei reacted, he would definitely attack in a big way. At this time, let Yu Yun lead some of the warships to cruise on the river near Jinling City to make King Wei jealous, and at the same time let Lu Fei send cavalry to go there. Hua Izhao pretended to attack to contain the forces of the King of Wei. According to the current military system, the Tongzhou battle report was first sent to Niu Ben, and Niu Ben, who got the battle report, immediately discussed the matter with Xiao Ming. Hearing this, Xiao Ming nodded. The location of this Tongzhou is modern Nantung, a place facing the sea in the east and the river in the south. From the Yangtze River in the south of Tongzhou to the west is Jinling City, where the palace of the King of Wei is located. This time, he took Tongzhou, one in retaliation for King Wei's seizure of his merchant ships, and the other in order to smash a nail in the hinterland of Wei, which would always make King Wei feel pain at the same time. Mastering Tongzhou completely means that he has a stable coastal supply point, and this maritime trade can be regarded as a transit point in terms of defending the city. Who can compare to this king's soldiers? This time this king asked Yu Yun to bring 500 city-defending artillery pieces. These city-defending artillery pieces are all regular artillery pieces, not export-type artillery pieces sold to King Wei. Even if he wants to use the Dengzhou army's method of destroying the city, he may not be able to do it. Yes, our artillerymen didn't kill his artillery right away, Niu Ben said with a smile, and now he finally understood why Xiao Ming deliberately created a batch of export-type artillery. It turned out that he was thinking about the situation today. Handing over the battle report sent by Yu Qingyan to Niu Ben, Xiao Ming said, "In that case, according to what the governor said, we can now order the Nanzhang army to feign an attack on Hua Izhao." "Yes, Your Highness." Niu Ben replied yes, turned and left. Watching Niu Ben leave, Xiao Ming looked at the map of the Great Yu Kingdom hanging in the main hall. At this time, King Wei's fief was marked by him. There are a total of 13 states in Wei, of which Pengzhou belongs to the big state in the north, and now he controls Pengzhou, which is equivalent to controlling 1/10 of the northern territory of Wei. Now he has occupied Tongzhou, and now there are only 11 of the 13 prefectures. As for this Hua Izhao, it is the current generation of Huaiyan, and it is closely adjacent to Pengzhou. This is where he plans to attack next. However, it seems that in view of the failure of the Battle of Pengzhou, King Wei not only increased his troops in Hua Izhao this time, but also brought 50 artillery pieces to erect on the Hua Izhao city walls. Xiao Ming took it calmly to the reaction of this King Wei. After all, no matter how many artillery pieces the King Wei took out, there was no threat to him. It can even be said that Xiao Ming is not afraid of any army in Daiyu. His army can compete with a top army such as the barbarians. So how can he be afraid of these disgusting troops? The only thing he worries about is that these forces will join forces to attack him. He can do it alone. After all, it has been almost 2 years since his firearms unit was established. Neither the thinking of the soldiers nor the regularization of the army can compare with the disorganized and disorganized armies still in the age of cold weapons. On the map, he has drawn an X in Pengzhou, and now he has drawn an X in Tongzhou. The two X's are one in the south and the other in the north, just like a giant mouth ready to swallow the fiefs of King Wei. While thinking about the next strategy for Wei Di, Peng Yukan arrived at the main hall after the announcement. His Royal Highness, the supplies brought from Pengzhou by Fiji's old-fashioned people have arrived, including grain, cloth, salt, tea, raw silk, and porcelain. Although the wealthy family in Pengzhou took away a lot of gold and silver, most of their property was left behind. In addition to these things, there are tens of thousands of cattle, and Fiji asked the old minister to ask His Highness whether these cattle are left in Pengzhou city or sent to Fengguo territory. Peng Yukan said in one breath, "Naturally, it is left to the people of Pengzhou. Isn't Pengzhou now the king's land?" Xiao Ming asked rhetorically. Peng Yukan hadn't reacted for a while, and then he suddenly woke up and said with a wry smile, "The old minister is confused. His Highness is now going to incorporate Pengzhou into the feudal kingdom. How can we favor one over the other now?" Xiao Ming nodded. "That's the truth. You replied to Mr. Fiji, saying that all affairs in Pengzhou should be handled in accordance with Fengguo County, and the people of Pengzhou should be integrated into Fengguo as soon as possible." "Yes, Your Highness," Peng Yukan said after a pause. Peng Yukan said again, "His Royal Highness, the 3-year period has now passed, and according to reason, It is time to collect agricultural taxes at the beginning. This king promised to exempt the fiefs from paying taxes for 3 years. You said that the time limit has indeed come, but what is the harvest this year, compared to last year's drought? This year's grain harvest can be considered a bumper crop, and this year's large-scale trial planting of potatoes in the prefectures and counties near Qingzhou has also yielded a lot of harvests. People don't have to worry about eating and drinking. Pang Yukin said with a smile. In his opinion, the current Fengguo is really prosperous, and the people have no worries about food and clothing, live and work in peace and contentment, and even have spare money to buy various commodities nowadays. The soap, salt, sugar and other materials sold by the Chamber of Commerce are the most sold in Fengguo, which shows that there is still some spare money in the hands of Fengguo people. In this way, the agricultural tax will begin to be collected. Xiaoming pondered and said, now he can't think of being poor and generous. Now the army is spending a lot of money to fight east and west. The bullets and artillery shells fired are all silver, not to mention the continuous construction of battleships, artillery, and muskets during this period of time. The innovation of military equipment was fast, but this was achieved on the premise that Xiaoming increased the proportion of military expenditure, and the most important point is that after the Chang'an rebellion, prices soared. And the prices of all kinds of materials doubled, which also caused huge military support to become a financial burden on the fiefs. What's more, with the refinement of government affairs, the government expenditures have also increased. At the same time, there are public officials all over the country. In order to popularize education, he has been making money at a loss. All these forced him to levy agricultural taxes. After all, in this social system with farming as the main body, agricultural taxes are still the bulk of taxes. However, although it is necessary to collect agricultural taxes, it cannot be too forceful. The result of his negotiation with Pang Yukin was to take only 1/10 of each mu of land, which was enough to ensure that the lives of the people would not be affected. Yes, Your Highness, since this is the case, the lower official will post a notice and ask Qingzhou newspaper to publish the matter in the newspaper. Pang Yukin said after pondering. Xiaoming nodded. Also, this tax must be clarified, and the prefectures are not allowed to collect taxes indiscriminately, otherwise don't blame this king for making a knife. Chapter 565 Transactions with the Dutch? Yes, Your Highness. Pang Yukin looked solemn. He is the head of the cabinet to lead the government affairs of the feudal country, and it is his primary task to find money for the treasury from where. Now if there is any need to spend money, Xiaoming will go to him first. Because of this, he always remembers the time for the restoration of the agricultural wealth, and Xiaoming's mention of this official is not without purpose. In fact, the taxation in the Great Yu Kingdom is quite chaotic, and the collection of agricultural taxes by local governments in the country 3 years ago was also a lot of chaos, and some daring officials overcharged, causing the people to be outraged. This time, he is just as worried as Xiaoming that he will take advantage of the opportunity to cheat for personal gain. After all, this agricultural tax was handed over to the local government, and according to his experience in the officialdom for so many years, there will definitely be officials who are wasting. Make a fuss about it. This loss has always been very popular in the Great Yu Kingdom. To put it simply, a bucket is used for weighing when the people hand in the grain. During the weighing, it is inevitable that some grain will be spilled on the ground. The government does not allow people to pick up these grains back, so it is called loss. What's more, some officials will come to the door to lift a foot and let the grain on the bucket fall to the ground. As a result, the people need to make up for the insufficient jin, which means that the people pay more grain, and these losses have become officials' own pockets. Xiaoming mentions this now to remind him that the ills in the officialdom of the Great Yu country cannot be repeated in the officialdom of the Fengguo. Otherwise, what is the difference between the corrupt officialdom of the Great Yu country? Having accepted this matter, Pang Yukin was about to go back, when Li Keihun arrived at the government office under the guidance of the servants. Seeing Pang Yukin, Li Keihun said, Pang Xiaofu, Xiaoguan is looking for you. Can the raw silk, porcelain, and tea sent from Pengzhou this time be handed over to the Chamber of Commerce? Xiaoguan will do a business with the Dutch right now. These goods, it's okay to leave it to you, but you have to replace it with silver and put it into the treasury. Hadhua, Pang Changshi's peace of mind. This is for sure. No matter how much money you earn, won't the lower officials be handed over to you in the end? Li Keihun said with a smile. Pang Yukin shook his head. This Li Keihun has always been glib, he said. I will arrange this when I go back now. Li Keihun bowed his hands when he heard the words. Pang Yukin turned to leave, when Li Keihun turned to Xiaoming and said, Your Highness, the Dutch merchant ship has arrived at Yangzhou port. I came here to ask Your Highness you go and tell the Dutchman that we only want half the silver, and let him exchange the other half for goods for Xiaoming. The actual goods are more practical than silver, but with the prosperity of fifth business, the hard currency of silver cannot be less, so under the measure, he takes half of it. Then what kind of goods does your highness need? Li Keun asked saltpeter, sulfur, iron ore, replace the rest of the silver with these. Xiaoming said, now this is the strategic material he needs most. Li Keun nodded and continued to say to Xiaoming, His Royal Highness, in addition to this, the lower official is going to send a merchant ship to Chu Land to sell the goods from King Zhao to Chu Land. Sugar and pendulum clock. So? Will the pendulum clock also be sold? Xiaoming asked. Yes, Your Highness, now the clock workshop has produced 100 pendulum clocks. The merchants in Chu are very fond of these goods and ask us to transport them to Chu and pay all the money. Xiaoming asked, how much money did you sell this pendulum clock for? Sighing, Li Keun said, if Xiaguan used to be able to buy 50,000 taels, but now the world is in dispute, even if the pendulum clock is ingenious, it will sell the silver, and Xiaguan now only sells 30,000 taels. It's not bad. If that's the case, you should walk more and make more money. Xiaoming said. Li Keun nodded, yes, Your Highness, this time, there are buyers for 100 units, which accounted for half of the amount, and the rest were bought by the locals in King Zhao. When did King Zhao have so many wealthy people? Xiaoming wondered. His Royal Highness, this is not surprising. First, most of Chang'an's dignitaries have fled to King Zhao, and secondly, merchants from all over the Great Yu Kingdom have settled in King Zhao these days. Naturally, there are more people who have some spare money. Li Keun smiled. He said, it's just that this Wei family restaurant is full of customers every day, and the number of businessmen joining the Chamber of Commerce is several times more than before. The situation described by Li Keun made Xiaoming very satisfied. Now that the Great Yu Kingdom is in chaos, businessmen are all looking for a stable place to settle down. There is no doubt that King Zhao is now the place they most yearn for. It is precisely for this reason that merchants gather in large numbers for a while, and because of King Zhao's comfortable living environment and prosperous trade, some powerful people are also keen to come here, and the arrival of these people naturally brought a lot of wealth. But now these wealth are in the hands of these people. He has to find a way to make these people consume a lot in King Zhao. Thinking of this, countless modern ways to make money immediately appeared in Xiaoming's mind. In fact, these people settled in King Zhao, and the contemporary rich immigrants immigrated to the same reason in contemporary times. Every country likes the rich to settle in their own country, because it means the arrival of wealth. And now he naturally cannot waste this opportunity. Well, that's very good. Since this is the case, the Chamber of Commerce must recruit members as soon as possible during this period of time, and also create some more luxury goods to sell to them. Xiaoming said with a wicked smile. His Royal Highness, this is a subordinate's specialty. Li Keun said happily. The two chatted for a while before Li Keun left. The main thing Li Keun came to find him this time was the trade with the Dutch. The latter thing was just a passing mention. After all, the maritime trade with the Dutch was the focus, and just as he thought, the main goods the Dutch now want are raw silk, porcelain and tea, and King Zhao is in short supply, but Widi is rich in these things. Thinking of this, his determination to take Wei land has become firmer. As long as Wei land is taken, the financial source of the feudal country will be stabilized, which will provide him with a solid foundation for seizing the north. The king of Zhao is now in the same mind to win the land of Shu. And he all wants to have a stable food supply. In recent years, the north has become more and more bitter and cold, and the food has become less and less. Although they do not understand what the Little Ice Age is, they are clear about the actual food production from Xiaoming's point of view. King Zhao's decision to act at this time must have felt this. Chapter 566 Bombarding Jinling. P.S. There are 2 more chapters. A gust of wind blew in from outside the main hall. The coolness that hid his face made Xiaoming recover from his contemplation. Now that the soldiers are fighting outside for him, he can only diligently repair internal affairs in the fief and develop industry to provide them with strong support. At the same time, in order to face the current situation and future foreign wars, he decided to implement military service. This kind of military service is somewhat similar to the modern conscripts, that is, all the people in the feudal country must serve 2 years of military service for him. This is not only for the reservists, but also to raise the level of being a soldier again, and let the people realize that being a soldier is a very honorable thing. Thinking of this, he began to formulate the military service law, and planned to promote it together with the agricultural wealth, so that the people would have this concept in their hearts. That night, he and Pang Yukan met again, and after the two discussed it, They went to the newspaper office to publish the agricultural and military service matters in the newspaper, and the next day to publicize it to the people of Fengguo. When the two were busy with internal affairs, Yu Yun, who received the order, led half of the warships from Tongzhou to Jinling City along the Yangtze River. This time they wanted to give King Wei some color in order to cooperate with the Yikingayan. Lu Fei also dispatched 5,000 cavalry from Pengzhou City to Huaizhou. After Tongzhou fell, King Wei was bizarrely angry, but when he was preparing to assemble his army, Lu Fei's change and the news of battleships in the Yangtze River came one after another. This put him suddenly in a dilemma. Do you really want to kill me? In the main hall of King Wei's mansion, King Wei is sitting in the first place, and below are his civil and military generals. The situation in Wei is getting worse day by day, and people are panicking now. His Royal Highness, King Qi's army is unstoppable. We are not opponents at all. Pengzhou City and Tongzhou City fell in one day, which is enough to show the strength of Qi's army. Yes, Your Highness, if this continues, our country of Wei will die. We can't continue fighting with King Qi like this. It is still too late to make up for the relationship with King Qi. Your Highness, for the sake of the people of Wei, please think twice. The officials in the main hall were asking for peace, and King Wei's face gradually became embarrassed at this time. The young man standing at the head of the officials came out and said, Father, all officials can see clearly now that we are not the opponents of Qi King. We can no longer fight with Qi King like this. Please send an envoy to Wei King, beg for peace. The young man was Xiao Han, the eldest son of the king of Wei. Seeing that the land of Wei was being eroded day by day, the officials recommended Xiao Han to explain the matter to the king of Wei. Hainer, even you. King Wei couldn't help but feel sad when he saw that his son was now standing with a group of officials seeking peace. Breathing violently, King Wei said, Xiao Qi has already sent an envoy to join King Yan, King Zhao and King Lang. Are you scared now, Father? Not to mention that Xiao Qi may not be able to combine successfully. Even if it is successful, this matter of preparing troops and horses from the four sides is enough for Xiao Ming to hit Jinling City. Now that Tongzhou has been lost, King Zhao's fleet is coming to Jinling City. In case the King Zhao army landed under Jinling City, can we support it? Xiao Han said in his heart. He has always had a deep prejudice against Xiao Qi. He is the heir of King Wei, and Xiao Qi has always overshadowed his edge over the years, making him almost non-existent this time. From the very beginning, he opposed fighting with King Qi, but tried his best to persuade him to form an alliance with Xiao Ming. But all his suggestions were rejected now. Because of the successive victories of King Qi's army, all the officials and generals have gradually sided with him, and his power has grown stronger than ever. There's no need to talk about it again. This king will not submit to Xiao Ming until Xiao Qi comes back. King Wei threw his sleeves and walked directly outside the main hall, ignoring the civil and military officials. After King Wei left, the officials gathered around Xiao Han, and the governor of Huaizhou said, His Royal Highness, how can this be? Now King Qi's iron cavalry is wandering outside the city of Huaizhou, and it is possible to attack the city at any time. If you wait any longer, Huaizhou city will be gone. Yes, our Yangzhou is very close to Tongzhou, and we are also threatened by the army of King Qi of Tongzhou at any time. Another official said. Xiao Ling smiled. Father, you won't cry when you don't see the coffin. Don't look back if you don't hit the south wall. HMPH, what can I do now? I can only wait for Xiao Qi to come back. Many officials were still worried, and one official said to Xiao Han, His Royal Highness, as long as you can let King Qi stop his troops, we will all support you. There was a smile on Xiao Han's mouth. He understood what these officials meant. These people are all the children of the big clan in the prefecture and county. Now they are most concerned about their own 1/3 of an acre of land. Now the example of Pengzhou City is right in front of them. After the loss of Pengzhou City, the Mi family, Lu family and other big families are like lost dogs. Mi Wenyi was directly beheaded. The miserable situation of the Mi family made them feel a little sad. Now the only thing they want is to keep their own territory, so they actually want to tell him that as long as he can stop the army and ask for peace with King Qi, they will willing to support him to ascend to the position of King Wei. The example of Chang'an is right in front of us, and these officials can naturally think of following suit. Thank you for your love. Xiao Wang knows it well. If the situation is critical, I can only rely on you. Xiao Han said equally vaguely. Now many officials have left, leaving behind people with the same ideas. Everyone was talking, when suddenly a rumbling sound came. This sound seemed to be thunder from a distance. Gradually, they heard the difference. Xiao Han said, Speaking of Xiao Xiao will arrive, and King Qi's fleet will come. The officials had long been frightened and their faces were pale, and now King Qi's army was haunting them like a dream, making their dormitory uncomfortable. Jinling City and Tongzhou are generally built along the river, but unlike Tongzhou City, Jinling City is farther from the river. Taking a group of officials, Xiao Han boarded the city wall. On the city wall, he looked out to the river. 12 huge warships were bombarding the pier on the shore. On the city wall, he could clearly see white smoke and fire. King Wei also climbed the city wall at this time. Looking at this scene, King Wei's face was extremely ugly. Now he can only watch these battleships show off their power, and he can't make any counterattacks. Father, now you believe that King Qi's army can directly attack Jinling City from here? Xiao Han advised. Father, it is still too late to form an alliance with King Qi. King Wei's expression was still very firm. He said, it's already overwhelmed. Even if you ask for peace at this time, with Xiao Ming's character, do you think he will let his father go? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 567, Sly King Yan. P.S. There is one more chapter. Bazhao. When Xiao Qi came out of Prince Yan's mansion, she met Zan Xingcheng head-on. He had met Zan Xingcheng on his last mission to King Zhao, and knew that Zan Xingcheng was resourceful, so there was no doubt about the purpose of Zan Xingcheng's presence here. I didn't expect King Qi's news to be so well informed, and he knew King Wei's plan so quickly, but I don't know if Zan Shishu also brought an assassin who was going to kill me. Xiao Qi sneered. Zan Xingcheng had also met Xiao Qi. Between the words just now, Xiao Qi deliberately used the words of Zan Shishi to irritate him, just to make him angry. He said, if you want to kill you, why do you need to come to Bazhao in person? And you underestimate your highness too much. What you can do, we can do the same, and we can do it better. Zan Xingcheng said. Xiao Qi's face changed slightly. Zan Xingcheng's simple words had already stated the purpose of his trip, and he was here for the sake of coexistence. As for why Xiao Ming wanted to join forces, anyone with a discerning eye could see that he wanted to join forces with King Yan to attack King Wei. With a sneer, Zan Xingcheng didn't want to say anything to Xiao Qi, so he turned around and walked toward Yan Wang's mansion. Xiao Qi's name suddenly wrinkled. He has been in Bazhao for 5 days. During this time, he not only met the 4th prince, but also met the king of Yan. However, although he tried his best to persuade, King Yan's words were vague and seemed to agree, but it seemed to be hesitant. But in general he meant that if King Liang and King Zhao agreed, he would send troops. So this time he is going to go to King Liang to lobby, because he also knows that King Liang has always hated King Qi, and it is not a problem to reach a covenant with him. This time he left because he was about to go to Liangdi, but now Zan Xingcheng's arrival made him feel uneasy for a while. This is the only way to save Wei Di. Looking back at Prince Yan's mansion, Xiao Qi still decided to go to Prince Liang. At Prince Yan, he had already made it clear that he believed that Prince Yan would not go back on his decision. When Xiao Qi left, Zan Xingcheng had already arrived in the main hall of King Yan's mansion, and King Yan was waiting for him in the main hall at this time. You are Zan Xingcheng? It is said that the Battle of Jizhao also had your credit. King Yan said loudly. Zan Xingcheng raised his head and glanced at King Yan. In his eyes, King Yan was thin, with a long face and wide mouth, and his appearance was somewhat ugly, like a donkey face. His Royal Highness King Huaiyan is here, but the credit for the battle in Jizhao lies with His Highness, not me. Zan Xingcheng said cautiously. King Yan stared at Zan Xingcheng, and he said, first it was King Wei, and now it's King Qi. What's going on now? What kind of wind is blowing you all over? Zan Xingcheng thought that King Yan was really an old fox. This was a question that he knew well. As soon as Xiao Qi left, this King Yan pretended not to know anything. So Zan Xingcheng said, His Royal Highness, this time King Qi sent me here not for anything else, but to give His Highness a great gift. Oh? It's hard to see King Qi's great gift. Let's talk about it. King Yan said with a smile. Zan Xingcheng said lightly, Xiao Zhao Xiao Zhao. King Yan's eyes flashed a ray of light, which was seen by Zan Xingcheng. Yes, it is Xiao Zhao in Wei's land. His Highness has always been fond of Xiao Zhao. Now His Highness King Qi is willing to take Xiao Zhao together with His Highness and give this place to His Highness. Zan Xingcheng said. King Yan remained calm on the surface. He said, this king of Xiao Zhao is the ancestral home of the Zhang family, but this ancestor's business is the ancestor's business after all. Wang doesn't want to make a big deal about this matter, and besides, even if this Xiaozhao is won by this king, it will not necessarily belong to anyone in the end. After that, King Yan took a sip of tea and waited for Zan Xingcheng's words. So, King Yan decided to deal with us together with King Wei? Zan Xingcheng asked. Neither humbly nor arrogantly. King Yan blew a breath of heat and said lightly, "This king is not stupid. This Xiaozhao is important, or the safety of Yandi is important. This king is very clear. For a Xiaozhao to sit and watch King Qi annex the entire Wei land, then King Qi wants to. It's the king who will deal with it." Zan Xingcheng became more and more cautious. This King Yan saw it very thoroughly, and this was their next plan. Is it just that King Yan thinks that the troops of the four directions will be able to break through Qi? Perhaps not, but it's enough to damage Qi's vitality so that it can no longer embezzle the land of other vassal kings. King Yan knocked on the table, and other vassal kings are not comparable in strength. Even if they conquer each other, they can't be like Qi. It is generally simple for a king to annex Wei land, so this king is more willing to trust the king of Wei, rather than dig his own grave for a small profit. Zan Xingcheng secretly thought that something was wrong. This King Yan was unusually calm, and he saw it very clearly. He said, "What if your highness and Wei Di eased up the relationship? Don't forget that King Wei and his highness are both royal relatives. The war is only for some unpleasant things. It is like a husband and wife fighting at the head of the bed, and at the end of the bed." Ha ha ha. King Yan suddenly burst out laughing. "If I didn't know Xiao Qi's identity, I might believe you, but after knowing his identity, I understand that King Wei will definitely not ask Xiao Ming for peace." Xiao Qi's identity? Zan Xingcheng looked puzzled. King Yan didn't seem to intend to hide the matter. He said directly, "This Xiao Qi is not someone else, but the son of King Ning. Back then, Xiao Wangsun killed King Ning for his throne, and King Wei hid his son and kept him by his side. It can be said that King Wei has long been dissatisfied. King Qi is Xiao Wangsun's son. How could King Wei submit to him? Although King Wei is extravagant, but this king knows that King Wei is still a bit tough." Zan Xingcheng looked shocked. He had also heard about the big case of King Ning. King Yan said that he finally understood why King Wei refused to form an alliance with Xiao Ming. It turned out that in his heart, he had always harbored hatred for Xiao Wangsun and his children. So it is. Zan Xingcheng's eyes narrowed, but he still had a trump card. He believed that King Yan would not refuse, because under the current situation, this is what everyone wants. After pondering for a while, Zan Xingcheng rolled his eyes, and he said foolishly, "Actually, His Royal Highness King Qi has long known Xiao Qi's identity, so the war with King Wei is just a personal grievance. His Highness has no intention of competing for the world. But it is if you want to keep your own country at ease. In order to prove His Highness's innocence, His Highness instructed the lower officials to teach you the musket manufacturing technology to Yandi." King Yan's eyes narrowed suddenly, and his heart beat violently a few times at this time. Unsatisfactory, and I have to say that this condition is too tempting. Chapter 568, King Yan and number 039, S conditions. P.S. Today, many book friends give the snails a reward. To be honest, the snails are very moved. At least they are with you when the snails are lost. Not to mention, the sixth is more musket technology. Seriously, King Yan stood up from his seat and walked towards Zan Xingcheng. He had to be excited. Exactly. Zan Xingcheng said according to the information obtained by the secret guard, King Zhao had already mastered the technique of rolling iron to forge an arquebus, so this technique of forging an arquebus was no longer a secret to the great Yu kingdom. It pays to trade a not-so-secret technology for some benefit. Although King Yan and King Liang did not seem to have acted rashly, they have always been eager for firearm technology, and most of the spies caught in King Zhao were from Yandi and Liangdi. From this, he judged that King Yan must be very likely to use this matchlock gun forging technology. With a smile on his face, Zan Xingcheng said, "Now, His Royal Highness King Yan should believe in His Highness's sincerity. But King Qi has left all his housekeeping skills to Diane. Then how are you going to hand over the firearm technology to this king?" King Yan asked. "It's very simple. Your Highness can send craftsmen to King Zhao. We will definitely teach these craftsmen how to make arquebuses. When these craftsmen return to Yandi, His Highness can make arquebuses by themselves." Zan Xingcheng said. King Yan's heart was finally messed up, and now his determination is starting to waver. Is he trying to restrain Xiao Ming, or the technique of arquebus? These two questions made his anxious heart uncomfortable. After pondering for a while, he said, "It's better for your envoy to hide in Bazhao and live for a few days, and let the king think for 2 days before answering. Since that's the case, let's go down." I hope your highness can make a wise decision. Zan Xingcheng said with a smile. King Yan squeezed out a smile, and he surrendered to Zan Xingcheng. Zan Xingcheng understood and turned to leave. Watching Zan Xingcheng leave, King Yan suddenly said, "Come out." As soon as his voice fell, the fourth prince and two young people walked out of the cabinet in the main hall. The older one of the two young people said, "Dad, is this still a choice?" "Of course it is the matchlock gun. As long as we have the matchlock gun, we can compete for the world. Otherwise, even if Xiaoming is destroyed, there will still be King Zhao, King of Liang, King of Wei, and King of Chu in the south. How could we be their opponents at that time?" "That's right, Dad. This King Wei and Xiaoming have a grudge, but this King Wei also has a grudge against us. Helping him kill Xiaoming, isn't that helping him? In Urchin's opinion, it's better to let Xiaoming this time. The King Wei that Ming tortured was half dead, but Xiaoming couldn't completely annex Wei Di. As a result, Xiaoming's strength could not expand rapidly, and this King Wei was also severely damaged." Another young man said. The fourth prince's opinion was different from the two. He said, "Uncle, you must not fall into Xiaoming's trap. This time, the combination of King Wei is an opportunity to eliminate Xiaoming in one fell swoop. Otherwise, if Xiaoming is given a period of time, this world will know one as his opponent, and letting him go at this time is undoubtedly a danger to raising tigers." King Yan paced back and forth, and he said, "Your words all make sense, so now this king is also very embarrassed. If you take a wrong step this time, Yan will be doomed. Father, don't hesitate anymore. If you don't do it for yourself, the world will be punished. If there are no muskets, it will not be difficult for King Zhao and King Liang to destroy Yan. After all, there are barbarians behind them, but if we are equipped with muskets and artillery, it will be different. There may be a chance at that." "Yes, Father, you have to consider the overall situation." King Yan's two sons tried their best to persuade him. The fourth prince wanted to interrupt, but when he saw the indifferent eyes of the two, he stopped talking this time. Although he fled from Chang'an to Bazhao, the honor that once belonged to the prince is no longer there. Now he lives in the palace of Yanwang. Although he is called the fourth prince, he no longer has the right to be a prince, and King Yan's two sons also treated him badly many times, which made him gradually understand that he was just an outsider in the face of his son's harassment. King Yan became more and more moved, but he kept a trace of calm. He said, "Tomorrow, call the civil and military officials to discuss this matter." After that, King Yan turned and left. He wanted to calm down and think about it carefully. There were only the second son of King Yan and the fourth prince left in the palace. This was the eldest son of King Yan, who said, "Yin and Yang, fourth prince, you will not be involved in the affairs of our country of Yan. After all, you are the prince of the great Yu kingdom. You should go to Chang'an and ask about Chang'an. No, maybe the 13th prince can seal a piece of territory for you when he is happy," said the second son of King Yan. The fourth prince's face turned white and in black, and now he finally understands what it means to rely on others. The two laughed for a while, then turned around and walked out. Before leaving, they deliberately bumped into the fourth prince. Looking at the arrogant appearance of the two, there was a flash of fierceness in the eyes of the fourth prince. He had never experienced such humiliation before. Clenching his fists tightly, he secretly vowed to clean up the two of them. The next day, King Yan summoned hundreds of civil and military officials to inquire about the envoys from Qi and Wei. To King Yan's surprise, all the officials chose arquebuses. However, in order to limit Xiaoming's growth, the ministers also gave him one very insidious idea. In the afternoon of the same day, King Yan summoned Zan Xingcheng again. This king has decided to agree to King Qi's conditions. King Yan said. Zan Xingcheng was overjoyed. "Your Highness, this is really a wise decision." King Yan waved his hand and continued, "But this king has one more condition. Your Highness, please speak. From now on, King Qi must stop annexing Wei and maintain the existing city. Otherwise, even if we don't need musket skills, we will attack Qi together with King Wei." King Yan said. Zan Xingcheng's brows furrowed. This King Yan is too insidious and cunning. He is preparing to take advantage of it, and at the same time prevent Xiaoming from completely occupying Wei and strengthening his strength. This question was too important, and Zan Xingcheng was unable to reply for a while. He said, "This matter can only be discussed with His Highness after returning to King Zhao." After going to Zhaodi, this king is not in a hurry. King Yan made up his mind about Zan Xingcheng when Zan Xingcheng heard the words. He nodded and turned to leave. Back at the hotel, Zan Xingcheng immediately asked the police to send back King Yan's conditions. At the same time, he was preparing to leave for Chang'an. This was the last stop of his trip. As long as he persuaded King Zhao not to participate in the matter, he would really relieved at that time. King Yan will be divided again, and only Liang and Wei will be left, and King Yuan of Liang is resisting, so there is nothing to be afraid of, and only King Wei will remain. Therefore, the most important thing now is King Zhao's attitude. After all, King Zhao is the strongest vassal king besides Xiaoming. After tidying up, Zhan Xingcheng and his party set off for Chang'an. At the same time, Zhan Xingcheng's achievements in Yandi were also passed on to King Zhao, and Xiaoming's final attitude will determine whether there will be a big melee in the north. Chapter 569. King Yan is really cunning. In the King Zhao government office, Fiji is watching the letter sent by Zhan Xingcheng. He just came back from Pengzhou yesterday. Now that the Pengzhou city government office is officially put into operation, the governor of Pengzhou has taken over government affairs, big and small. There is no need for him to stay. Pan Yukan said, King Yan wants to get the Arquebus technology and also wants to contain us. It's really ulterior motives, but he really gave us a problem. Xiaoming's face was gloomy. The last thing he wanted to see happened. Judging from King Yan's reaction, King Zhao probably would also be very afraid of his annexation of Weidi. Sure enough, after another 10 days, Zhan Xingcheng returned from Chang'an with a reply from King Zhao. His Royal Highness, now only King Liang agrees to Xiaoqi's cooperation. King Zhao and King Yan are both in the swing, just waiting for our reply. Zhan Xingcheng said. Then what are the conditions of King Zhao? Xiaoming asked. Zhan Xingcheng said, after meeting King Zhao this time, King Zhao wanted to threaten His Highness with a matter of coexistence, but when the lower official mentioned the covenant with King Chu, King Zhao changed his mind. I ask your highness not to continue to occupy Wei land. After taking a breath, he continued, this time King Wei spent a lot of money to move and rescue soldiers. It is said that in order to recruit soldiers, he asked Xiaoqi to give Zhao King number 80 taels of silver, but now Zhao King and Shu King are at war. I don't want to fight on both sides, so, only King Liang is willing to send troops now? Xiaoming asked. Yes, your highness, now the most important thing is King Yan's attitude. If King Yan does not give up his troops, this joint vertical will basically fail. Xiaoming paced back and forth. Now the vassal kings of the Great Yu Kingdom stand on their own. Each vassal king has his own interests, and no vassal king wants to see other vassal kings being too powerful. If it wasn't for his overpowering performance, it is estimated that he would be the king of Zhao now being attacked. After thinking about it carefully, he said to Zhan Xingcheng, in this case, we will agree to King Yan's conditions and provide him with Arquebus technology. His Royal Highness, just like this, do we have to let go of the strategy against Weidi? Niu Ben was also in the government office. He was very unhappy about this matter. Now that the Nanzhang army and Dengzhou army are like broken bamboo, this is the pursuit of victory when Fiji and Pang Yukin are both old foxes. They looked at each other and seemed to see through Xiaoming's strategy. In order to avoid being besieged, we can only temporarily agree to this condition. And now that we have Pengzhou City and Tongzhou City, we also need time to completely transform these two places. Now King Wei has involved King Zhao, King Yan, and King Liang. This time, it seems that a contract must be signed. Xiaoming looked at Zhan Xingcheng. His Royal Highness has a clever plan. Both King Yan and King Zhao proposed to send envoys to King Zhao, and let the 5 envoys sign a truce contract in King Zhao to maintain the status quo. Zhan Xingcheng said in surprise. Fiji said, this incident reminds the lower official of the incident of the 6 nations united to attack Qin, and now the situation is quite the same as it was back then. Hahaha. So now we are stronger than Qin. Xiaoming said. Pang Yukan agreed, that's right. Because of this, these vassal kings are afraid that we will continue to be strong. This time His Royal Highness attacked Weidi. It seems that they are really afraid. In this situation, even if King Wei does not send people to cooperate, it is estimated that other vassal kings will not be able to sit still. Pang Xiaofu said that this king also saw this and was ready to do it. Since they want a contract, we will give it to them. After Pengzhou and Tongzhou are stabilized, we will continue to take other cities in Wei. Xiaoming said loudly. Everyone nodded when they heard the words, and now the initiative to attack or defend is in their hands today. Pengzhou has a population of 500,000 and Tongzhou has a population of 200,000. Now they only need time to recruit soldiers from the two places to train them into an army. Once they add another 50,000 troops, then even Zhao Wang, Liang Wang, Wei Wang, Yan Wang Yi, they are not afraid to rise up and attack them. Niu Ben sighed and said, it's just that the end general still feels at a loss. If this contract is signed, Wouldn't it mean that only King Wei can attack us, and we can't beat him? This cattle governor is at ease. Since we are going to sign a contract, this king naturally wants them to admit our occupation of Pengzhou and Tongzhou, and this king has an idea. Maybe we can take the opportunity to win Huaizhou. Xiao Ming already had a plan in his mind, and then he told Pang Yukin and others about the plan. After everyone heard it, Fiji looked shocked. He said, "I didn't expect words to come like this. The lower officials are really knowledgeable. If this is the case, King Wei and other vassal kings are really suffering." Xiao Ming smiled and nodded. This time, it wasn't that Xiao Ming was persuaded to sign this armistice agreement. In fact, even if the four kings came to attack, he might not necessarily lose, but he never forgot that the barbarians had been watching the changes in the Great Yu Kingdom at that time. Even if he won, it was a tragic victory, and the four kings would also suffer heavy losses, and this situation was exactly what the barbarians wanted to see most. Once this happens, then he will no longer have the energy to deal with the real enemy of the Great Yu Kingdom. Therefore, at this time, he must avoid King Wei's joint strategy. After all, he has already taken advantage of it now, and he only needs to digest the fruits of victory when his strength is further enhanced. Wei Di will be completely annexed in a very short period of time, making Qin Yan and others too late to react. As for now, he still needs time to digest the land and population he has captured, and the most important thing is that he is ready to capture an overseas food supply area. The Sanchin Kingdom currently controlled by the Japanese state in this era. The big island opposite Fuzhou is called Ryukyu, and a series of islands from Ryukyu to Japan were called the Three Mountains Kingdom, that is, Okinawa and its nearby islands in later generations according to the information provided by Wang Zhuan. The Sanchin Kingdom has a population of 200,000. Now the Sanchin Kingdom is forced to pay tribute to the Japanese country and provide a large amount of food to Yamada Nobunaga every year. During the time when Yamada Nobunaga unified the Japanese country, the food provided by the Sanchin Kingdom can be said to be helpful. Yamada Nobunaga is quite busy in contemporary history. Successive dynasties have twice missed the opportunity to regain this kingdom. Xiao Ming doesn't want to miss it now. Besides, this is a place that can provide food for free. Therefore, Xiao Ming also took this aspect into consideration when he signed the armistice contract. The supply of food was stable, and he would not worry about logistical issues in the future. After negotiating the matter, Xiao Ming said to Zun Xingcheng, "This time you will be responsible to the end. You should inform them now, saying that this king agreed to their conditions and asked them to send envoys to King Zhao to discuss." "Yes, Your Highness." Zun Xingcheng bowed and said. Chapter 570 War of Words. Time flies into the month of August. After being busy for more than half a month, Zun Xingcheng passed on Xiao Ming's idea to the four vassal kings, and the kings of Zhao, Yan, Liang, and Wei all sent messengers to King Zhao to discuss the matter at the same time. After 3 failures, the Iron and Steel Workshop produced the first alkaline converter. This news made Xiao Ming extremely excited. He is about to face negotiations, and now the success of the alkaline converter has given him more confidence in the negotiations. Mass production of steel will allow him to realize the innovation of military equipment as soon as possible. Like his plan, all he wanted was some time. Your Highness, this is the alkaline converter in the hot steel workshop. Meng Kuo took Xiao Ming to a converter that was 2 meters high and 1 meter 5 in diameter. Xiao Ming looked at the converter with satisfaction. The converter made by Meng Kuo was composed of a round table-shaped furnace cap, a cylindrical furnace body and a spherical-shaped furnace bottom, and it looked like a top. The trunnion that could make the converter rotate is cast on the steel-making furnace to meet the process of charging, tapping, slag pouring, etc. There is also an upwardly inclined cavity under the side of the converter, which is the air outlet. The converter steel-making method currently adopted by the Iron and Steel Workshop belongs to the side-blown basic steel-making method, which is the earliest method in the converter steel-making period, and the later bottom-blowing and top-blowing technical requirements are very high, and he cannot achieve it. But even so, this is enough to meet his current needs. The molten steel produced by this batch of converters is definitely much higher than the steel produced by the crucible. It can be said that with the current intensity of gunpowder, he is no longer afraid of blasting. In addition to the air outlet below the side, there is also a small pipe on the top of the converter, which is the molten steel outlet. Well, not bad, not bad. Xiao Ming was very satisfied after checking the converter up and down. In addition to the converter, the steel workshop has also undergone a complete overhaul. At this time, the converter is not placed on the ground, but on a support, the lower half of which is poured into concrete, and the upper part is the metal part. The suspended converter can be rotated by the chain connected by the craftsman dragging, and there are two facilities on one side of the bracket, one of which is used to pour raw materials into the converter, and the other is used to tap steel in general. The equipment of Gangti workshop is still somewhat primitive. After all, it will take a long time before the automation of equipment. Menkuo is quite satisfied with his results. The busy period of time has not been in vain. Now he is ready to build the second converter production line. Your Highness, we have already tried steel making, and the quality of the steel produced is much stronger than before. The phosphorus and sulfur problem of crucible steel making is finally solved. Really? Your speed is fast enough. Xiao Ming smiled. Menkuo said, His Royal Highness, the trouble is just the furnace lining. Other equipment is the simplest, so it's faster. Although I say that, it would not have been possible without your hard work day and night. But this is just the beginning. You must continue to work hard. This king can count on you to reduce the cost of steel. Xiao Ming said, His Royal Highness, if Xiaoguan cannot greatly increase the output with a converter steel making method, His Royal Highness will throw Xiaoguan in this furnace and make it together. Menkuo promised without losing a sense of humor. With a smile on his face, Xiao Ming said, If that's the case, what is the difference between this king and a tyrant? But if we don't do it well, this king will definitely be replaced. Yes, Your Highness. Menkuo smiled. After wandering around in the steel workshop for a while, Zhan Xingcheng sent someone to look for him. Originally, Xiao Ming was going to negotiate with the envoys from the four directions and sign a contract, but because he was happy, he put this matter aside and came here on purpose. As soon as Zhan Xingcheng looked for someone, he found that Xiao Ming was no longer in the palace, so he sent someone to find Xiao Ming. After explaining a few more words to Menkuo, Xiao Ming walked slowly towards the King's Hao government office. When he arrived, he found that Zhan Xingcheng was arguing with the four messengers. What's the matter? When did the government office become a bustling city? Xiao Ming said as he walked in. Zhan Xingcheng saw Xiao Ming coming and said, Your Highness, we were discussing this contract just now. Xiao Ming nodded. At this time, he looked at the other four people. The messenger of King Wei was none other than Xiao Qi. He also knew the messenger sent by King Zhao. It turned out to be Wang Zai, who served Queen Zhao as for the envoys of King Yan and King Lang. He did not know them either. Noticing Xiao Ming's expression, King Yan's messenger dispatched and said, See Your Highness and the second son of King Yan, Kuizang. It turned out to be the prince. Please take a seat. Please take a seat. Xiao Ming said with a smile. Kuizang took his seat. Originally, he didn't have to come personally this time, but because the skill of arquebus was too important, King Yan had to send his second son to King Zhao. The envoy of King Lang always had a cold look on his face. After the envoy of King Yan introduced himself, he said lightly, I have seen His Royal Highness King Qi in the next Zhang Hao. After Zhang Hao, Xiao Qi and Wang Zai exchanged fake greetings with Xiao Ming respectively. On the surface, the etiquette was over, and now it was time to get to the point. This time, Xiao Qi was the one who was the most angry. He ran around hard, but when he turned around, King Yan and King Zhao both offered conditions to humiliate Wei Di. At this time, he had to change his views on Xiao Ming. The real conditions had already been reached under the negotiating table. Neither Kuizang nor Wang Zai wanted to waste time. After a while of silence, Kuizang first said, His Royal Highness, the purpose of our visit today is to stop His Highness from annexing Wei Di. Since His Royal Highness has now agreed to this matter, I will write it down in black and white, using the contract as proof. Yes, you all understand people, so don't waste any more time now. Wang Zai also said. Xiao Qi naturally knew that King Yan and King Zhao had achieved ulterior motives with Xiao Ming, and he said, Two messengers, what you promised Your Highness has nothing to do with us. Since His Highness wants a truce now, it is better to send Peng Zhao, and Tong Zhao will hand it over to discuss the matter. Zheng Hao also said, What the envoy Xiao said is extremely true. His Highness has captured 2 cities in Wuidi, and there is no reason for a truce if they are not handed over. Isn't that the advantage that His Highness has taken? Xiao Ming said lightly. So you two came here to disagree with the thoughts of King Yan, King Zhao, and King Ben. Exactly. Only when His Royal Highness hands over Peng Zhao City and Tong Zhao City will we have a truce. Xiao Qi's tone was firm. Xiao Ming looked at Xiao Qi unexpectedly, and suddenly showed a playful smile. Then he looked at Kuizang and Wang Zai. You two, you have also seen that this is King Wei's aggressiveness. It seems that this truce contract cannot be signed. Kuizang and Wang Zai were suddenly a little annoyed. Weakening King Wei, and at the same time letting Xiao Ming's hands and feet be bound was their goal. They didn't want to ruin their good things because of King Wei's two cities. Chapter 571 Raiders of Huaishao. P.S. One more chapter. Xiao Qi, what do you mean? Zhang was young and energetic. Originally, he was just going through the motions and took the musket technology from King Zhao by the way. Now Xiao Qi broke his plan. Xiao Qi looked at Zhang and sneered, this is the city of Weidi that was cut off. Of course, Shizi Kui will not feel bad, but if you don't feel bad, King Wei is very distressed. When Wang Zai heard the words, he suddenly smiled. Yin and Yang, Xiao Qi, I don't know if you are ignorant, or whether King Wei is ignorant, but don't forget, if it wasn't for the persuasion of His Royal Highness King Qi of King Yan and King Zhao, now is your chance to talk nothing. What Wang Shilin said is very true. Zhang agreed. Zheng Hao said, the ability of the two to reverse black and white is really extraordinary. The boundaries of the vassal kings have been set in the time of the previous emperor. This is clearly written in the imperial decree. Now the king of Qi has invaded the king of Wei. Chengqi, what's the difference between rebellion and rebellion? Xiao Ming looked at Zheng Hao at this time. He said, this king is a rebel, so what is the crime of King Lion colluding with foreigners to try to seize Chang'an? What is the crime of King Lion colluding with Shan merchants to sell a lot of materials to the barbarians? Your Highness is careful. King Liang has always been loyal to the Great Yu Kingdom, and he has never acted like this. Zheng Hao bowed. Xiao Ming's eyes narrowed. This truce contract was a piece of waste paper to him, and he scrapped so many Zhozang just to paralyze them and grow secretly. But now this negotiation has obviously exceeded his expectations, and the situation is developing in an unknown direction. Zhang and Wang Zai looked at Zheng Hao at the same time. The matter of King Liang's collusion with the barbarians is well known in the world, and this Zheng Hao really knows nonsense. With his eyes open since the words were all for the sake, Xiao Ming didn't bother to save face for Xiao Qi and Zheng Hao. After refuting Zheng Hao, he looked down at Xiao Qi and said, don't think that this king doesn't know that King Wei is fighting. What's your idea, Xiao Qi? Do you know who King Ning is? As soon as the word Ning Wang came out, the room immediately became quiet, and Xiao Qi's face changed greatly. Xiao Ming continued, when the first emperor killed King Ning for the crime of treason, only one young son disappeared. This person is you. King Wei kept you by his side all these years, don't you know what it means? Also, 6 years ago, the king of Wei and the royal family of King Zhao tyrannical family had colluded to try to murder this king. In the battle of Jizhao, the king of Wei sent such a weak army, it is also to see that this king was defeated by the barbarians. The next two cities, even if you take the entire Wei land, is the Wei king still qualified to sit on the royal land? When Xiao Qi heard the words, her face turned red and white, while Wang Zai and Zheng Hao looked at Xiao Qi in surprise. Only Zhang's eyes flickered, because this was what King Yan deliberately revealed. The reason for this is that King Yan's purpose is to prevent Xiao Ming from reconciling with King Wei one day. What? Let this king say it right? Xiao Ming sneered again and again. He said, since the 4 envoys have all arrived in King Zhao today, this will be made clear. This time this king wants to stop the army. But the king of Wei does not allow it, so don't blame this king for being ruthless. Zhang and Wang Zai looked at each other, which put them in a dilemma. Wang Zai continued, Xiao Qi, the person who knows the current affairs is Zhenji. At this time Qi Kaiang and Wei Wei are weak. Don't win the war. Yes, if I were you, I would quickly cede Tongzhou and Pengzhou city to sign the truce contract. Zhang said in agreement. Zheng Hao stopped talking at this time. This time he came here just to play the role of a shit stick. He knew very well that only King Wei and King Liang were left to pose a threat to Xiao Ming. Xiao Qi gritted her teeth. This matter is important. I need to explain it to His Royal Highness King Wei before he came to King Zhao this time. King Wei's idea was to bring back Pengzhou city and Tongzhou, but he did not expect that King Zhao and King Yan would not want to see Xiao Ming becoming stronger, nor would he want to see him become stronger. Therefore, the treaty to cede Pengzhou city and Tongzhou city in the truce contract caught him off guard. Xiao Ming said, you can go back, but don't blame this king for not reminding you that before the truce contract was signed, Qi and Wei were always in a state of war. I understand now. Xiao Qi took a deep look at Xiao Ming and turned to leave at this time. Xiao Ming looked at the other three and said, everyone, this time King Wei is so unreasonable. If the war resumes, you can't blame this king. Zheng Hao didn't speak, but Zhang and Wang Zai nodded. After instructing Zun Xingchang to entertain the three, Xiao Ming turned around and came out of the government office. At this time, he immediately sent someone to call Niu Ben. After a while, Niu Ben appeared in the government office. Your Highness, are you ready to attack Huaishao? Niu Ben asked. That's right, this time King Wei is not greedy enough. This is in line with their plan. You immediately send someone to notify Lu Fei to attack Huaizhou City. Xiao Ming said he had planned to cheat King Wei in this negotiation, but he didn't expect King Wei to come to the door himself. Now even if he wins Huaizhou, King Yan and King Zhao have nothing to say, and I am afraid they will only force King Wei to truce. Earlier Niu Ben was overjoyed when he heard the words. He said, Your Highness, the last commander will send someone to inform Lu Fei now. After all, Niu Ben returned to the barracks immediately, and the general's order was conveyed to Pengzhou City. The first negotiation was stopped because of King Wei's obstruction, and it took 7 or 8 days to wait for Xiao Qi to return the news. For Xiao Ming, 7 or 8 days were enough to take Huaizhou City. During this time, he only needed 8 days enough to wait for the good news. The next day, the Kingzhou military order arrived in Pengzhou City. Lu Fei, who was training recruits, was overjoyed after seeing the military order. What's wrong? So happy? Luo Xin stepped forward to join in the fun. Lu Fei said, The military order is here, let us take Huaizhou. Really? Luo Xin exclaimed excitedly. He thought the fighting would stop temporarily, but he didn't expect to be able to siege the city again now. Like many soldiers, the popularity of the last bounty has not retreated. Now Nanzhang soldiers in the army want to keep fighting. General Lu Fei handed the order to Luo Xin, and soon other generals were also attracted, learning that Huaizhou was about to be attacked. The generals whispered for a while. After confirming the military order, Luo Xin said to Lu Fei, Would you like to bring the recruits recruited in Pengzhou this time? It is really worrying to keep these recruits in Pengzhou. After all, they are not loyal enough. You're right. This time, we will bring their strong and powerful presence, so as not to leave disaster. After all, to us, they are new recruits, but in fact they are veterans. After occupying Pengzhou City, Lu Fei began to recruit soldiers. After the land was evened out by the government, many soldiers in Pengzhou City turned to join the South Expedition Army. It was just that when these people were not fully integrated into the Nanzhang Army, Lu Fei did not dare to believe it completely. Chapter 572 Tax System. Wei's restaurant. Xiao Qi looked at the bustling streets of Qingzhou and felt a little confused. He had sent someone to pass the conditions of the truce back to Jinling City, but he was very pessimistic about the result. In fact, after the failure of the merger, Xiao Han wanted to slander him in Jinling City. He was just flashy in his words, and the merger was just a stupid way. But despite this, King Wei has not lost his trust in him, but King Wei's attitude is also very clear. What he wants is Xiao Ming to retire and return to the city, but after seeing the truce today, he immediately understands that Wei Di is completely. It became a commodity traded by Xiao Ming and other vassal kings. Because of this, he suddenly felt a burst of sadness in his heart. Once upon a time, Wei Di was the top feudal country of the Great Yu Kingdom, and even Xiao Wangsun had to be afraid of 3 points, but now Wei Di can only shiver under the shadow of Xiao Ming. Yes, King Wei has some tough bones, but in his opinion, no matter how tough the bones are, they can't stop Xiao Ming's guns. It's just that now King Wei has not come out of this gap. He has always looked down on Xiao Ming, and is even more unwilling to yield to him. With a sigh, Xiao Qi closed his eyes. After Xiao Ming left this time, he suddenly had an ominous premonition. This feeling was weird, but he couldn't explain it clearly. However, the ominous premonition soon became a reality. On the third day, he received the news that the Southern Expedition Army was attacking Huaizhou. Hearing this news, he finally understood the meaning of Xiao Ming's words. As long as he does not sign a truce for 1 day, he will have time to continue attacking the city. At this time, the envoys of King Yan and King Zhao are helpless. After all, this is all caused by him. When King Wei agreed to this matter, it was estimated that Huaizhou was another city in the truce book. Thinking of this, he immediately wrote a letter to King Wei and told King Wei to agree to truce. Otherwise, Wei Di will only lose more and more cities, and King Yan and King Zhao will not stop Xiao Ming in the Qi Wang mansion on the 3 streets of the Wei family restaurant. Xiao Ming also received news that the Nanzhang army was attacking Huaizhou. His Royal Highness, this King Wei is self-inflicted this time, and we don't have to be polite. After winning Huaizhou, all the land in the north gate of Wei land will be ours, and our fief will also increase by 1 million people. Peng Yukin said. Xiao Ming nodded. Pengzhou City has a population of 500,000 people, Tongzhou City has a population of 200,000 people, and Huaizhou City has a population of about 300,000 people, adding up to a total of 1 million people, which is equivalent to adding 1 of 3 people to Fengguo population. The south is indeed a densely populated place. If the whale land was swallowed whole, he estimated that the population of the closed country would be as high as 7 million, which was basically the same as the population of Britain in this era. With this population base, he is no longer afraid of the crowd tactics of other vassal kings united, but Hua Izhao is now heavily armed by the Wei king. And it is not easy for the Southern Expedition Army to bite this hard bone. I just hope that Lu Fei can take Hua Izhao quickly. But what happened to the agricultural wealth you said last time? Is there anything wrong? Siege is important, but internal affairs are the foundation of siege. So Xiaoming must not relax, Pang Yukan said. His Royal Highness, this time the lower official came to talk about this matter. The people of the 6 states did not say anything about the restoration of agricultural fu. After all, they have paid agricultural fu before, and this time our agricultural fu is very low. The people are very happy, so the collection of agricultural taxes is very smooth. After a pause, he continued, however, some people are unwilling to pay grain to offset their agricultural duties, but directly pay silver, cloth, raw silk and other things. I wonder what your highness thinks. The people now know that the outside world is chaotic, and it's normal to want to keep more food. Besides, the collection of agricultural taxes by the Great Yu Kingdom is a combination of various materials. Since there are people like this, let's accept it. Xiaoming said in a deep voice. Pang Yukan nodded, and then asked a very important question. Your Highness, should the levied agricultural tax be kept in the government office or turned over to the state treasury? Startled for a moment, Xiaoming asked, why are you asking this question? Pang Yukan said, the agricultural tax in the Great Yu country is left by the prefectures and the rest is turned over to the state treasury. But the taxation method I learned at Bowen College is to let the prefectures turn over all the taxes to the state treasury. The national treasury will then distribute it to the state governments according to the situation. This taxation is a major matter of the country, and the lower officials only report to His Royal Highness. Xiaoming understood. He said, the self-retained taxes in various states will inevitably have the drawbacks of being shoddy and deducting stolen goods. In order to avoid this tax being detained in the states and counties, you ask them to hand over the accounts and taxes to King Zhao together. After the account is settled, give them a part of it back. Just in this way, the cost of transporting these materials to King Zhao will be very expensive. Pang Yukan reminded. Xiaoming reacted immediately. He sighed. This era is still too backward, but even so, he still insisted on this method. He did not forget that tens of millions of taels of silver tax was withheld layer by layer during the Ming dynasty, and arrived in the capital. There are only a few things left in any era. Corrupt officials are very courageous, and Xiaoming does not believe that his own kingdom is a clean official. In fact, no matter in that dynasty, whether it was the founding of the country or the end of the world, the proportion of corrupt officials in officialdom was higher than that of honest officials. Part of it is also sent, and all of it is sent. Xiaoming said, and each village and county must have their own account books to back up for inspection and verification. Yes, Your Highness. Pang Yukan said. Xiaoming continued, Pang Xiaofu, this taxation is the easiest place for officials to embezzle money. You have to hurry up. You can't rub sand in your eyes, and you can't rub sand in this king's eyes. Yes, Your Highness. Pang Yukan's expression was a little strange. He looked at Xiaoming and wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. Hua Izhao. While Xiaoming and Pang Yukan were talking about the farming, the Nanzhang army was launching a full-scale attack on Hua Izhao city. As the intelligence said, King Wei added 50 artillery pieces to Hua Izhao city. But these artillery pieces were smashed by King Zhao army artillery before they were used. Different from Pang Zhao city, Hua Izhao has a very flat terrain, and a horse is flat. Facing such a city without a moat, Lu Fei boldly deployed his soldiers in front of the city wall, while Bei Mu's cavalry was on both sides of the infantry to protect the flanks. Because there were 3,000 cavalry in Hua Izhao city this time, in order to defend Hua Izhao city, King Wei spent a lot of money just talking about the cavalry. How could these Hua Izhao cavalry be the opponents of the King Zhao cavalry who had personally fought against the barbarians? After dropping the corpses, these cavalrymen hid in the city and never came out. Chapter 573. In the roar of artillery fire, Lu Fei observed the situation of Hua Izhao city with a telescope. At this time, Luo Hong rode his horse back and dismounted. He said to Lu Fei, General, Hua Izhao city has now been breached by all 4 city walls, and now none of the nobles in the city can escape. Do you now order soldiers to invade the city? Lu Fei nodded. Hua Izhao city was located in the hinterland. Like Kang Zhao and Lei Zhao, there were very few defenders in the area. The defeat of the Peng Zhao army this time had already brought down the King Wei's army. According to the information provided by the secret guard, the defenders of Huaizhou City were originally only 5,000 people, but after Peng Zhao City was captured, King Wei urgently recruited soldiers from the local area, and dispatched another 30,000 people to Huaizhou for support, which was very hasty in his opinion. These improvised soldiers are not as good as the Peng Zhao army at all. Remove the soldiers from the south gate. Lu Fei said after hesitating for a while. Luo Hong was surprised. General, this is the opportunity to completely wipe out the Huaizhou army. Why should you withdraw? Lu Fei has read a lot of military books and examples of war in Bowen College these days. He said to Luo Hong, when Peng Zhao City falls, Huaizhou generals must be afraid. After all, we can easily capture Peng Zhao City. Besides, the troops supporting Huaizhou this time were transferred from other prefectures and counties. They did not have enough faith in defending Huaizhou. If we were besieged from all sides, they would jump over the wall and fight us to the death, but they would leave a way to survive. They are bound to collapse. Luo Hong suddenly realized. He felt ashamed. He was very confident after arriving in Qingzhou, but after contacting these Qingzhou generals, he felt more and more ashamed, not to mention that these generals are very familiar with the use of firearms, and even they are proficient in the art of war, which is very different from the generals in other armies of the Great Yu Kingdom. The last understands. His Highness asked us to take Huaizhou City as soon as possible, so there is no need to entangle with the defenders in the city. Luo Hong said exactly, but this general is not going to let them go. After the army in the south is withdrawn, immediately set up an ambush along the official road in the south. In addition, let Bei Mu cooperate with you to destroy this reinforcement. We want to make Wei Wen take his breath away. Yes, General Luo Hong was a little dissatisfied with Lu Fei at first. After all, he came from the Imperial Army, and Lu Fei was purely a wild man. Now he really realizes that Lu Fei still has some skills. Watching Luo Hong leave, Lu Fei re-observed the defenders on the city wall. Under the shelling of the Southern Expedition Army, the city gates on all sides were now collapsed. In front of the artillery, the city gates of the city wall were no different from paper-pasted ones. After the city gate was blasted open, the Huaizhou army was in chaos, and now there was no decent resistance on the city wall. Facing this scene, Lu Fei fell into contemplation whether it was Peng Zhao City or Huaizhou City. These two battles made him understand that the other vassal kings now seem to be showing their teeth and claws, but they are actually just puffy. Moreover, in the face of the firearm army, these armies still in the cold weapon era do not have enough countermeasures. After the Battle of Huaizhou, he must send a letter to Xiaoming explaining the current situation, so that he can understand the real fighting situation, so that Xiaoming can correctly judge the current situation as expected by Lu Fei. When Luo Hong was withdrawing the soldiers from the South City Gate, the resistance on the city wall weakened again. At this time, he gave the order to charge. The sound of the charging horn sounded, and the soldiers of the Southern Expedition Army attacked the city from the north, east, and west gates like hungry wolves. The city of Huaizhou is now in chaos. Under the shelling of the Southern Expedition Army, the corpses of the Huaizhou army are everywhere near the city wall. As soon as the Southern Expeditionary Army entered the city, they immediately occupied the city wall near the city tower, and then the soldiers turned the artillery on the city wall and bombarded the army in the city at the same time. The mortar was also placed on the city wall. At this time, the Southern Expedition Army no longer fired lime bullets, but replaced it with another type of shell, which was not filled with lime, but with marbles. When the cannonball explodes, the marbles in the cannonball will splash out to form a range of damage, but although the effect is different, the principle of the two is the same, and this is the most primitive flowering bomb. The only downside is that it is difficult to control the time and cannot achieve precise explosions, but even so, it is enough to intimidate the enemy. Moreover, this batch of artillery shells has just been delivered and has not been used yet. Luo Xin deliberately let the artillerymen use it in this war. Boom! The mortar on the city wall made a muffled sound, and the cannonball with a wooden plug in the front fell into the resisting Huaizhou army like lime bombs. This kind of shell also needs to cut a match rope to judge the time. When the shell falls into the Huaizhou army, the shell just hits one person and then rolls to the ground. The surrounding Huaizhou army was startled by the shell, but they didn't care when they saw that it fell on the ground and didn't move. But at this moment, the shell on the ground exploded with a boom. What? A burst of white smoke and flames rose from the crowd, accompanied by a scream. The Huaizhou army around the cannonball fell down, and many soldiers screamed while covering their wounds hit by the marbles. This scene made the other Huaizhou army soldiers look pale with fright, but then more shells fell into the crowd in the face of heavy casualties. The Y army, organized by the Huaizhou military nobles, completely lost their will to fight at this moment and began to flee. There are no enemy troops at the south gate. At this time, someone shouted, and the Huaizhou army, who learned the news, immediately retreated to the south city gate. At this time, the Southern Expedition Army had completely controlled the towers on the north, east, and west walls. The soldiers who entered the city also drove the army of King Wei in the city to the south like ducks. On the official road at the south gate of Huaizhou City, Luo Hong and Bei Mu were ambushed 20 miles outside the city. There was a forest here for the ambush at this time. They have been waiting here for 2 hours. They attacked from the morning. And it is now afternoon. Just when Luo Hong was waiting for a little irritability, the scout came to report, "Lord Colonel, the disbanded enemy army has come this way." Luo Hong and Bei Mu looked at each other and nodded. This time they not only have to take Huaizhou City, but also eliminate the forces of King Wei as much as possible, like a falcon waiting for its prey. Soon, mixed with defeated troops, the team of the wealthy family members appeared in Luo Hong and Bei Mu's field of vision. Defeat in war means that the army has lost its command and organization. Such a team like a headless flies cannot organize a counterattack at all. Because of this, the pursuit of the defeated soldiers has always been small losses and big gains attack. Seeing that the defeated soldiers were getting closer, Luo Hong suddenly shouted loudly. At this time, he only had 5,000 musketeers in his hands, but to him, no matter how many soldiers were defeated, they were nothing but scattered sand, not worth mentioning compared with his musketeers. Bei Mu's cavalry was more flexible, leading 3,000 cavalry. Bei Mu rushed out first. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 574, Land Cessation and Indemnity. Jinling City. Just 2 days after Xiao Qi's message arrived in Jinling City, the news of Yuanzhou City's fall came. Hearing this news, King Wei slumped on the seat. "Father, things are clear now. If you don't sign the truce, Xiao Ming will continue to attack the city, while King Yan and Zhao will only sit on the sidelines." After all, this time, it was the father who did not agree to the truce conditions that led to the fall of Huaizhou. Xiao Han looked anxious. In this situation, his father was still as sticky and hard as a stone in a ditch. If things go on like this, all the cities in Wei Di will belong to Xiao Ming, so what kind of land will he have in the future, able to inherit? Therefore, after Huaizhou fell, he immediately joined his loyal ministers to go to the palace to persuade him. King Wei on the throne's eyes were sluggish. In the last battle of Pengzhou, the defenders were involved in escaping. This time the defenders of Huaizhou were either killed or captured, and only a few people were able to escape. The battle of Pengzhou was a fluke, and Tongzhou might also be a fluke. But now that Huaizhou has also been conquered, he finally realized the gap between the Wei army and the Qi army. Without artillery and muskets, he could not defeat Xiao Ming at all. His Royal Highness, the most important thing now is a truce. Only by giving us time can we reorganize our army, otherwise Wei land will perish. Xiao Han looked distressed. "Father, the result of Xiao Qi's hard work this time is this truce letter. If you don't seize the opportunity, other vassal kings will definitely not pay attention to our Wei land." King Wei's face was extremely ugly. He was ambitious. He was going to ascend to the supreme throne in Chang'an, but now he can only live humbly in the shadow of Xiao Ming. The police told Xiao Qi that this king agreed to the conditions of the truce. King Wei finally said word by word. Xiao Han and the other officials breathed a sigh of relief. Wei Di had 13 states, so what if they lost 3? They can talk about anything as long as they can keep their glory and wealth. Soon, one person and one horse went to Qingzhou with a message from King Wei. 5 days later, the envoys from the 5 parties did it again. Compared with 10 days ago, Zhan Xingcheng was more energetic at this time. Huaizhou was conquered, and officials from the top and bottom of the Fengguo were in a frenzy. It is their duty as ministers to open up the territory and expand the land. Now that they see more and more land in the vassal state, of course they are happy. Xiao Qi, that day I told you to sign it. Did you ask for this? Now Huaizhou is lost again. Qi Zhang sneered. When Xiao Wangsun was in power, King Wei had the largest area of the kingdom, and the largest city and population. It is for this reason that other vassal kings with different surnames are somewhat afraid of him, but now even if he loses 3 cities, it will not hurt. Wei Di Wangzai's expression was a bit complicated. King Qi's army had moved to another city in such a short period of time, which shocked him. Thinking that the battle between King Zhao and King Shu still failed to achieve any results, he became more and more apprehensive of Xiaoming. It's just that this time he came to King Zhao to take advantage of the harmony and the mud. Now King Zhao has no power to attack Xiaoming with others, so even though he knows that Xiaoming is going to another city, he has nothing to do. If he talks too much, he is afraid of being forced to in a hurry. Xiaoming provided the king of Shu with a large number of firearms while the 5 of them were chatting without a word. Xiaoming walked and Lu Fei had already sent a battle report to King Zhao. This time, Lu Fei easily won Hua Zhao, which gave Xiaoming another understanding of the combat effectiveness of the current feudal army in the past. He seemed to have overestimated the army of these vassal kings. Now that Lu Fei has proved the fighting strength of the vassal king's army with facts, he suddenly realized, just as Pang Yukan said, today's Great Yu Kingdom is a rotten country. This rottenness is not only about the royal family, but also in the peak of land annexation in the feudal kingdoms of the vassal kings. The clansmen and clans were originally too big to lose, and now they have scoured the world's wealth, and the battle report returned by Yi Qingyan further illustrates this problem. The indifference of the people when they attacked Tongzhou city was surprising, so after analyzing this problem, Xiaoming realized that maybe he could be bolder. After all, although there were many vassal kings, he was the only one who fundamentally changed. Your Highness. When Xiaoming arrived, everyone stood up to greet him. At this time, Xiao Qi took the initiative to say, His Royal Highness, King Wei is willing to agree to the truce contract, hoping to sign it as soon as possible. Yes, Your Highness, we have lived in King Zhao for some time, and we should go back after counting the days. I hope Your Highness will make a decision as soon as possible. Xiaoming did not speak, but suddenly spread a map on the table. Others looked at them one after another and found that this was a map of Wei Land, on which the current cities of Wei Land and the cities that had been captured were marked. When Xiao Qi saw this map, her complexion changed greatly, because in addition to the marked cities that had already been captured, a circle was drawn in Yongzhou. His Royal Highness, what do you mean? Xiao Qi was shocked and angry. He had already guessed a few points. It's very simple. In addition to Peng Zhao, Tung Zhao, and Hua Zhao, the 3 cities belong to this king. In addition, Yongzhou will be ceded and 5 million silver will be indemnified. If this condition is met, this truce book will be stamped by this king. Xiaoming said loudly. Xiao Qi's face suddenly flushed. Your Highness, you are too deceiving. It's King Wei who deceives people too much. Originally, this truce book gave him face, but he refused to accept it, so I can't blame this king. Xiaoming's tone was a little tough at this time. Zheng Hao looked at Xiao Qi and then at Xiaoming. His Royal Highness King Qi, this is a bit too much. Since His Highness has taken Hua Zhao, this Hua Zhao should be given to His Highness, but how can Yongzhou be ceded? There are a lot of grievances between this king and Wei King, but it's not something that can be said clearly in a few words. Now this is the condition of a truce, otherwise this king can only go and get it in person. Xiao Qi and Zheng Hao looked at each other, then Zheng Hao said, Since Your Highness is so aggressive, it is impossible to say that we Wei, Zhao, Yan, Liang will have to deal with His Highness. Negotiations are originally quarrels, relying on mouth on the table and strength under the table at the same time. Mutual intimidation is also a way of negotiation. And now Xiao Qi and Zheng Hao obviously want to use this trick too. Don't take Yandi. King Wei has 13 prefectures. It is reasonable for the 4 prefectures to be compensated. Besides, Weidi is rich and prosperous. The 5 million taels are trivial. Zhang waved his hands again and again. Wang's Zai smiled under Xiaoming's gaze. Your Highness, I didn't say anything. Xiao Qi and Zheng Hao's faces suddenly became a little embarrassed. This time the merger was a complete failure, so King Wei and King Liang are going to fight with this king? Xiaoming said with a smile, then this king can only accept the move. Chapter 575 The European Situation. Is Your Highness really preparing for us to go to war? Don't forget, Your Highness, that although a country is big, it will die if it is warlike. Even if His Highness can defeat us, it will inevitably lose its strength. Xiao Qi said loudly. It's not that this king is going to fight, but you are forcing this king to go to war. If that's the case, we will burn all jade and stone. Xiaoming looked like a rogue who was afraid of him. Seeing this, Xiao Qi and Zheng Hao were silent. And now Xiaoqi obviously ate the weight and became determined. Zhang and Wang Zai were secretly happy in their hearts. They wished that these three families would fight, so that they could profit from it. After looking at Xiaoming for a while, Xiaoqi was finally defeated. Now Xiaoming is arrogant as the victor, but he is trembling as the loser. After hesitating for a while, he said, "This matter is too important, I can't be the master, this matter must be decided by His Royal Highness King Wei. I just hope that His Royal Highness can give time to the lower officials, and don't take the opportunity to plunder the land." Xiaoming smiled, and now his strong appearance finally made Xiaoqi cowardly. He said, "Yes, but this king's patience is limited." Xiaoqi nodded and turned to leave Zhang's side. "Hey, it's going to take another 10 days. Why do you have to be impatient, Your Highness? There is food, drink, and opera in this king's house, so this day is not boring." Wang Zai said with a smile. Zhang sneered inwardly, thinking how could Wang Zai know that they had reached a deal with King Qi in private, but he was still calm on the surface, and said, "What Wang Shilin said is very true. Since that's the case, today I went to this King's Hao Theater for a stroll." After all, the two of them went to Zhanghao and the others left, and didn't stay much. He clapped his fists to Xiaoming and left. At this time, Zhan Xingcheng said to Xiaoming, "Your Highness, will this King of Wei agree? Yongzhou is a well-known and prosperous place in the world. I'm not afraid that he won't agree, but I'm afraid that he will agree. Now we have been in 3 cities in more than a month. No matter how stupid this King Wei is, he should understand that he is not our opponent. At this time, he delays our attack time to them. It's beneficial." Xiaoming said. Zhan Xingcheng nodded, "It's just more beneficial for us to delay the time. If we include the population of these 4 states, we will greatly increase our strength." "That's right, but the reason for the truce this time is that the 4 sides are united. The issue of ammunition also made me a little helpless. The military workshop came to report that there is not much ammunition stored in this warehouse." Xiaoming sighed. Zhan Xingcheng's expression suddenly became a little exciting. He didn't expect that Xiaoming was just trying to scare Xiaoqi, but he was actually unable to attack again. "It turns out that it is true that you should leave a batch of ammunition for self-defense, and not all of them can be used for conquest." Zhan Xingcheng said. Xiaoming nodded. "This time at the Pengzhou station, the Battle of Tongzhou, and the Battle of Huaizhou, 1.2 million rounds of musket pellets and 16,000 solid shells were consumed. Although some of the shells were picked up after cleaning the battlefield after the war, there were still some shells that didn't know where they went, and more marbles were lost because they were too small also. The marbles that had hit the local soldiers could not be taken out exactly." Xiaoming said, "The continuous war almost exhausted the inventory, but now that there is a converter steel-making production line, this problem is not a problem, but he needs time to reserve." After chatting a little with Zhan Xingcheng, Xiaoming went to the steel workshop again. He often runs to this place these days. Whenever he sees a whole furnace of molten steel flowing out, he will be very satisfied because this is one step closer to the Industrial Revolution. After all, to fully realize the Industrial Revolution requires a large amount of steel to make various types of machinery. After observing the production of steel for a while, and then watching the production of the second converter, Xiaoming left for the palace. Just after returning to the palace, Xiaoming was about to take a break when Li Keidun walked in with a man with red hair and blue eyes. "Your Highness, long time no see." The person following Li Keidun is none other than the Dutch Rhodes. A few days ago, Li Keidun was still talking about trade with the Dutch, and also mentioned that Rhodes went to Dengzhou, but he did not expect Rhodes to go to Kingzhou with him. His Royal Highness Rhodes said that Earl Clare asked him to come to Kingzhou, and the lower official brought him. Li Keidun said with a smile. Xiaoming looked at Rhodes at this time. "Bring this king to say hello to Earl Clare. This time Earl Clare must have something important for you to come here." "Yes, Your Highness, the British were very active at sea during this time, and our fleet was under great pressure, so Earl Clare hopes to sign a military pact with His Highness, and hope that His Highness can block the British attack in the Asian waters with us." "Damn Brits are really driving us crazy," Rod complained. "Haven't the British always been in the Indian waters? As far as I know, the southern waters are mainly the colonies of your Dutch and Spaniards." Xiaoming said thoughtfully. "No, there are also French and Portuguese." Rhodes corrected, "His Royal Highness is right, the British have always been in India, but our merchant ships have brought unfortunate news. The British have improved the steam engine. It is said that this has increased their cloth production a lot, and now these Englishmen are looking for dumping grounds. They must have an idea here, and Earl Clare is just taking precautions." Xiaoming didn't look on the surface, but his heart was slightly turbulent. According to his understanding, the west of this world was invaded by the steppe barbarians half a century earlier, which led to the early end of the Middle Ages, and now Rhodes' words further confirm his speculation that Western technology is about half a century older than the contemporary era. He couldn't help asking, when did this happen? It took more than 3 months for our merchant ship to arrive in Holland from Gerlandia, plus 1 year. It took a total of 3 months a year, but when everyone knew, the first batch of steam engines had already entering the textile factory. Rhodes spread his hands. Xiaoming's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect that he would get this big news by accident. Now all the countries in Europe want to get steam engine technology from the British. It seems that they are very interested in this thing. Rhodes said to himself he's been out of the Netherlands for far too long and is now slow to change in Europe. The purpose of Rhodes coming here this time is to test the matter of military alliance. After thinking about it, Xiaoming said, military alliance may be a good idea, of course, plus His Royal Highness has more than 30 warships. The British can't take advantage of this sea area. Rhodes' eyes were earnest. Xiaoming was stunned for a moment. It seemed that Rhodes and Claire already knew about the addition of 24 battleships to his fleet. The Dutch people were really well informed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.